Hello, salutations. Welcome back to the Tetracast, episode 325, recording on November 18, 2023. We are recording the week right before North American, or USA Thanksgiving, not Canadian Thanksgiving. So we are on the cusp of the holiday season. Because right after Thanksgiving, it's going to be everything turns to Christmas, pretty much.
It's not already.
Yeah, as if not already, like usually after Halloween, that's what it turns to. But after Thanksgiving, it's really on full blast.
Mariah
And-
Carey has, in fact, been defrosted.
Yep, that's right. The annual Mariah Carey defrosting. It's a popular event in the USA. As joining me, we have the usual. We have Adam Vitali,
Hello?
James Galizio,
Hey, folks.
Chow Min Woo,
How's it going?
and then special guest this week, Cullen Black.
There was a podcast intro here. It's gone now.
We have quite a bit of RPGs, new RPGs to talk about this week. Action packed. We had the release of Persona 5 Tactica, the tactical RPG spin-off of Persona 5 game. You had the remake of Super Mario RPG that came out. That pretty beloved RPG for a lot of folks when they played it when they were much younger. And then I played a new indie RPG called Small Saga that's been in development for quite a long time. So I got to play and beat that. So I'll talk about that later on. And then also there was a DLC release for Remnant 2, the first of three, called The Awakened King. And James and I got to check that out as well. That was some pretty cool stuff. So let's hop to it because we have a lot to talk about this week. First off, we're gonna start with Persona 5 Tactica. This is once again the tactics spin-off for Persona 5. It's sort of like the usual Persona spin-offs like Persona Q, the Persona Arena fighting game. So in that vein, it's taking the cast of Persona 5, putting them in a new genre, new gameplay systems. And both James and Cullen got to go check it out. James reviewed it on the site, and I believe Cullen, you reviewed it for Nintendo Insider as well, right?
Yes.
All right, let's start with you, Cullen. Talk to us about Persona 5 Tactica.
Okay. So for those of you who might not know, build a little world build this a little bit, add some context. I am a very big Persona 5 fan. A Persona fan in general. I adore these games. I was the one who gave Royal the 10 out of 10 for our site. I was thinking about that recently. That's almost like 4 years ago. That's wild.
Yep.
But anyway, for all intents and purposes, I should like this game, and I think it's just fine. It's James and I were talking in the review period, and we pretty much agree. It's a game.
Mm-hmm.
It's a game where it's one of those RPGs where it starts out fairly strong and you're like, ooh, there might be something here. And then it's like, it never really gets bad, but the quality definitely peters out in the second half of the game. And it a lot of the like classic fumbles where it's like visual variety, story pacing, that sort of thing. The game's fine. I gave it a 7. I don't know what Colin gave it.
I gave it a 7 as well.
Yeah, so we're both on the same page here. It's fine. If you have Game Pass and you like Persona 5, or if you like tactical games, or both, it's worth playing. It's not that long. I don't know how some people apparently played it for 40 hours. It's really not that long.
No, that sounds impossible.
That sounds impossible.
Yeah,
Okay,
I was reading some reviews and some people said, oh, it took them 40 hours long. It's like, really? Huh.
How?
They really thought about every single turn and retried and undid and restarted a lot of stages.
They're doing Fire Emblem. no deference.
We were talking about this a bit before we went live, and it really seems like the kind of game where they had a bunch of incredible ideas. Like, the gameplay is the strongest part about the game. Like, just the core systems and the mechanics of it all. Like, in the moment, you are playing a very competent at like worst, strong as hell at best SRPG, what happens though is that like there was some budget problems maybe, or like dev time was a bit shorter. Something happened, it seems, that it's just there's less content to back up these ideas than you would assume. And by the time you're done with the first world, you pretty much have seen all of the like game itself.
I wouldn't go that far, but it is very striking that you have like one of the
Maybe
things
World 2.
Yeah, I was gonna say World 2, but it's very striking that you have a couple of objectives. It's striking that you have all of these like objective types that you see in World 1 that just never show up in the rest of the game. There's like 4 different worlds, plus a DLC one I have not played yet. I've heard mixed impressions on it. And then there's like these side quests that have their own objectives, and some of them are interesting. It's like, why are these completely optional? Why isn't there more variety in the matches? Because it's like I kind of enjoyed the fact that there was different things to do in the first world. Like obviously sometimes you'd have a bog standard kill every enemy. Sometimes it would be okay, you need
Get to a place.
Get to a place. And there was like a really good level. I think my favorite level in the game is in lead up to the first boss, where there's like a huge level, like kind of like a rat maze you have to go through to like get to the end. And it's like you're basically being surrounded by enemies. You can't go up to them. You basically have to take pot shots at them. Like it, I don't know if you remember the one I'm talking about, but
was that the one? I'm trying to.
It was like a dining hall thing.
Yeah, the dining hall. I remember that as well because I thought that was really strong because it's very tight corridors, and again, you're surrounded by enemies and you're getting chased down, and it's really good. Yeah, to kind of I guess adjust what I said earlier. While they introduce a couple new things in World 2, like a couple enemy types. By the end of World 2, you've basically seen all the enemy types in the game. But the game
have seen all the enemy types. They don't introduce a single new one in.
They just recolor them.
Yeah, they just recolor them.
But in World 1, you've hit the peak of quality, and the problems come from like when you finish World 2. I don't know about you, James. I was in the like mindset of like, okay, cool. I'm like done with the first maybe quarter of the game, or like the first third of the game, and I'm gonna like. So the second world, typically in games like this, it's not great, but you know, there's still a lot left. No, you've hit the halfway point.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that so the two main characters that are added in Tactica, you have Toshiro and you have Irina. It feels like by the ending of World 2, the majority of Toshiro's character development has already happened, and since the plot is literally just like only about his character development, it feels like they freak out, and it's like, okay, we need to just like fast track to the end of the story, even though there's 2 more worlds left. But like World 3 is just
World 3 is so nothing from a gameplay
nothing.
perspective.
And then World 4 is like, okay, there's gonna basically be no story. It's just like one giant climactic I didn't even count the number.
Refight all the old bosses as well. Just new annoying mechanics. It falls so hard in the second half of the game. Like I like some of the story stuff in World 3, but like I maybe like this is a hot take, or maybe like I don't know how like, but like, I think one of the most boring map designs you could have in an SRPG is Volcano, like aesthetically.
Yeah, and it's something like that.
It makes no sense with where you are going in the third world, like the setup of the third world, and then all of your stages takes place in a volcano, kind of. That has nothing to do with anything. It just looks murky and red and whatever.
And here's the thing, it's like each of the worlds is called a kingdom, but really that only works for the first 2, because the third is just like a bog standard. It's basically just the metaverse.
Yeah.
And then the last one,
metaverse.
It's
like metaverse. You just mean like mementos or whatever, or no?
Yeah. Basically, very very similar. Like it's just, I don't know. Like, you can kind of feel where the game's budget went because, like, the first world, you have all of these like elaborate cutscenes, like almost every other mission. Whether it's like a really well animated like 3D animation or it's a 2D animation, like an actual like 2D animation, and then you don't really see any of that in World 2. You do see some like CGs, but it's just that's like one image. And then World 3 and 4, it's like
World 3 almost strikes me as if they had two different worlds and they had to jam them into one.
yeah.
Like they had all the maps and textures built up because that's the thing. Just if people don't know, in a kingdom, all of your stages essentially have a lot of the same layouts, but just moved around and changed up a little bit, which is fine because they do fun gimmicks with it. So it seems like they had this like lava kingdom they had planned, and then they didn't get any of like the story stuff done for that. And then they had this school kingdom planned, but they didn't get any of the gameplay things for that. So you just walk into a door into a lava world, and those are your stages.
Okay.
But I have played the DLC. Oh, I played like an hour of the DLC. I quite like it so far. I've heard from a friend that it's like the story is pretty non-existent, but I could say the same for about most of the game. So I don't really mind that. Akechi's here, and I like him. They're fucking when he meets the antagonist of the world, he basically says to like he tells them to kill themselves immediately, and I'm like, that's my boy. There he is. He's up to his rat boy games again. But what's really striking is from a gameplay perspective, this is the most interesting thing I played in the entire game.
And it's DLC that like if you
and it's $20 DLC
on top of the $60 MSRP of the game already.
Can I just go on a quick like complaint?
Yes.
Atlas has become like really brazen and bad with their DLC strategies. Like day one, $20 DLCs. There's always like cheat DLC and costume DLC and like get free personas or whatever. It's just even like I remember, SMT5 had it, Soul Hackers had it, the Nocturne remaster had it. Like they just do all these jeez.
Yeah, Atlas has some of the worst DLC practices.
I would say it's not even just the DLC. I mean, Atlas has always been kind of bad when it comes to monetization. Like, they were the only publisher that regularly released games for $50 on 3DS and Vita.
Atlas tax.
And not to mention, Persona 3 Reload is a $70 game on PS4 and Xbox One. I think it's coming to Xbox One. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So it's
what's really wild though is Strikers released relatively like clean from a lot of this stuff. There was like a music DLC, but that was really it. Like there wasn't any like that game felt like a complete package, which had me almost thinking it's like, okay, maybe Atlas is like coming around on a lot of this stuff. And then you have Tactica, which feels like a $40 game.
That's Omega Force, baby. They're fair with their players.
That actually is an interesting point that Tactica is, as far as I understand, internally developed. You could easily see this being like, oh, Atlas Sega kind of contracted some other developer to make it.
It feels like they did.
But it seems like it's internal. And
it's P Studios. It like literally when you boot it up, it says it's P Studios. So this was internally developed.
So I know like Atlas has done strategy games before with like Devil Survivor, and I know the teams shuffle around and whatnot. As far as I understand, that Devil Survivor team, years and years later, was behind Soul Hackers 2, which was last year. So,
I thought Devil Survivor was an outside studio. At least the DS versions were. I'm trying to remember the studio. But regardless, they still have some like head creatives that are Atlas internal, and they move those around.
Yeah, because they split off like the Studio Zero split off from P Studio to make Metaphor.
Oh, it was CareerSoft. They did the Langrisser games.
Okay.
And
they either co-developed or just mainly developed the Devil Survivor games.
So let's for people who are like, what does Tactica play like? So there's one of those like weird things where like I call it a tactical RPG. It's not necessarily like a grid-based strategy RPG. Like it's not like what you think of like Fire Emblem or Final Fantasy Tactics. This is very much. It's not. It's like it may even like look like XCOM to some people. It's not really like XCOM either.
It's like
when it comes to
Rabbids.
Yeah. I'd say it's more like Mario and Rabbids when it comes to gameplay equivalent. And I think I've only barely started. I'm only like the first hour, and I think Chow got 2 hours of Persona 5 Tactica. And I'm sure me and Chow are like, we're still like the honeymoon period of this until everything apparently kind of falls apart.
Hey, I am playing this through means where my friend has bought the entire package of the game with the
Mhm.
DLC and everything in there, and then he's
Library
sharing it with me. But I was like wondering, if I paid for this, I would feel pretty ripped off. At least that's in my opinion.
I didn't pay for it, and I kind of feel like I'm feeling that as well, though. Like and it's wild because again, I am like the Persona guy. I bought those dancing games for 5 and 3 on launch, and I'm like one of the few people who actually loves those games. Like genuinely had an amazing time with them. Think they're better than 4 dancing, like all that. Like I was so primed to be in on everything about this, but it just feels like they released a game that wasn't really finished
Mhm.
and does not feel worth the $60.
Yeah, so you're thinking like this should just be a stronger game if it was like if you just waited like for a sale for it to be more
Mhm.
appropriately
Or-
priced.
Or
Get it on Game
Pass.
Pass.
It's a perfect Game Pass game. Thinking
Yep.
about it, that's probably why the DLC is the way it is.
Yes, so I'm glad you picked up on that as well, James, because I wanted to use this as a soapbox to give a theory
Mhm.
that
Oh, I've heard this
I am-
theory.
yeah, I'm pretty sure. Again, there's no no one come after me. There's no proof on this at all. This is just my observations
Basically, just vibes.
by vibes and just kind of understanding like industry trends and seeing this, and also Like a Dragon Gaiden, where they didn't have as much like scummy like DLC stuff there, but in both instances, it feels like they had small like they're basically said, hey, like I assume that Phil was like, hey, Sega, give us Game Pass games. And they were like, okay, cool. So Game Pass doesn't really make developers long time lucrative. Like, like that is not a consistent income source, because it's free for people. I imagine they just get like a bulk of money and they can put it on other systems if they want.
Also,
but what
marketing, so.
Also marketing, yeah. But so what it seems like, Sega was like, okay, 2 small budget games off of 2 of our most popular franchises that essentially exist to be on Game Pass. We need to make them cheap, but we still need to sell them for a pretty decent price elsewhere. I think Persona was definitely a bit more egregious. Like Gaiden, this probably should have launched at 50 max. But
wait, didn't I forgot?
Gaiden did launch for 50.
Yeah, 50.
Gaiden launched as 50, and
Yeah.
I don't want to like start the Gaiden hate train. I think that game's fine, but Gaiden shows a lot of instances where they feel like they had very small scope ideas and they had to pad it out to be a full release game.
That's pretty much like my conclusion on it as well. It's like what's there is like okay, but like it's definitely you can feel the padding of the side content.
Mm-hmm. And
like artificially extending your playtime, and like for some people that's totally fine and that's okay. But
Yeah.
like it's very it's very apparent, and like it'll make you do other side things that like don't. It's like very arbitrary. It doesn't really make sense narratively. It's just there to kind of once again pad out game time.
Yeah, and it
thin offering of main story.
And while Tactica isn't like doing that in the same ways, it feels like they didn't have enough for a full game, so they just really had to pad it out with what was there. And that it is, or maybe this started as a more like big scoped thing, and then they realized they had to do like, okay, so it's the Game Pass game, And it's funny because both of them also are like small little tastes of the franchise before the very big $70 games coming out in around the January-February time. I think they're a week apart.
Yeah, that's also a funny thing where Sega is releasing like 2 of their biggest games 1 week apart.
I hope it goes
I know
well.
Not every Persona fan is a Yakuza fan and vice versa, but I have to imagine there's a bit of
a lot of crossover.
They're both turn-based RPGs.
Yeah. So
And I'm
No,
pretty
I-
sure both of them are M-rated, so
Maybe like back when Yakuza was more of a brawler beat 'em up, there wasn't as much overlap. But nowadays, yeah, I feel like it is safe to say if you're a fan of one, you're probably a fan of the other, or you're looking at the other and making that decision.
the Venn diagram is almost a circle.
Yes.
yeah, there's definitely like a good probably installed base of saying where should I put my $70 into, and I have to make one decision because I'm not just gonna splurge on $140. You know,
Mhm.
That's probably why Persona 3 Reload's on Game Pass too.
Is Yakuza Infinite Wealth gonna be on Game
Nope.
Pass?
Nope.
Oh, interesting. That I guess that kind of makes sense, but I don't know what the DLC situation like is in Gaiden. I think it's a couple of like guys in an arena that you can play as.
yeah. So like the pre-order bonus was basically you have Majima, the Daigo, and I'm blanking on the other dude's name that was playable in Yakuza 4. They you could have them as like Coliseum fighters pretty much, and that's like a mini game in Gaiden. I don't know if there's any other DLC besides that pre-order bonus. Um, but that's all I know of.
And it makes sense because
There's no story there's no story
Mhm.
DLC like Tactica had.
Yeah, and it kind of makes sense because I assume that like it is a lot harder to justify making a whole like DLC expansion for this kind of story, given its context and where it stands.
But
So
there's
they
also
couldn't.
like there's also like extra offerings with Gaiden, right? Because like you have like the Infinite Wealth demo in there
Yeah.
as well, so you can get like the Tokyo Game Show demo that's like very gameplay focused, and then you unlock also like a story demo that like it kind of is like an epilogue of Gaiden and kind of like some of the events in Infinite Wealth that transpire. So you kind of get you're also incentivized if you're interested in Infinite Wealth. You're incentivized to get Gaiden if you want to like try out a demo.
Exactly.
Infinite.
Um,
Which like in Tactica, like there's no demo like Persona 3 Reload. Right?
they should have done that. That would have been so smart. Hire me, Sega. I've got the good ideas. But like it
But you see, the demo is Game Pass.
for real. But with Persona, I just get this idea that they were like, okay, but we can actually probably get away with selling a $20 little mini game, like 4 to 5 hour long DLC, because it's got these two characters that people want. I think what maybe they always plan this to be DLC, but it really feels like the DLC was planned to be a part of the game, or maybe like some kind of maybe this was meant to be a kingdom in its own that had Akechi and Kasumi, or maybe Akechi and Kasumi were added after the fact. But yeah, it just feels like this should have been in the main game because there's so little variety in gameplay already.
It's also
But-
like when you were telling us earlier before the podcast started. It's like it's also very weird that like okay, let's say you do get the DLC, like how things transfer over back into the full game seems
Oh, yeah.
awkward as well. So detail it for people who don't know like what
So-
you actually get from doing the DLC. Because from what you told us, like the DLC is fully standalone, it has its own story, it has its own like stages and its own
Yeah.
character. Like you can't like bring like your current full game main game roster into the DLC. Because it's very restricted in what you can deploy.
It's a prequel story to the main game, but not that really matters much. But essentially, after you hit credits on the DLC story, you get a little pop up that says, "Okay, cool, you can play these characters in your main game in New Game Plus." It's like, what? Why?
That's also like a very like that's just not something that's like that kind of makes a lot of sense. It's like, yes, these cool characters that like you got to try out in this DLC. Of course, you would want to play if you want to play more of them. Because like, oh man, I want to play more of like these characters and fill out more of their skills and whatever in the main game and like continue their progress. And it's like, no, you cannot play them until you beat the main game one. Like,
It's really strange.
Oh.
Also, I feel like some of the best music in the game is locked behind that DLC.
My God.
Now.
That's another thing. There is a surprisingly small amount of vocal battle themes in this game. Like, James, I don't know if you felt the same. I feel like there's pretty much 3 that you'll hear for a majority of the game, and they stop showing up after World 2 until the end.
I was excited, and then because like I'm pretty sure both the first and second main boss of the game have unique vocal themes, so I thought, oh, there's going to be a unique one for every boss, and then it just doesn't. And it's like,
well, I thought that they were the same, but both of the worlds had their own unique battle themes.
yeah.
And then because that's the thing. It feels like they didn't really go as hard this time on the soundtrack. Like a lot of the outside of the vocal themes, most of it's forgettable. Like the battle themes that don't have vocals in them are very like just boring. I just kind of at some point put on like podcasts or YouTube videos when playing this game because I was waiting for more of the battle themes because they're really cool, and they just dropped that in World 3. It's so weird.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like a fractured product.
Yeah, and I feel like you've been nothing but negative. So I do want to stress again, it's still a fine game.
There's nothing to talk about.
Yeah, if you have Game Pass, it's worth playing. Like we said earlier, it's short. Like it's like as far as like an RPG is, it's short. It's not like Super Mario RPG short, but we'll get to that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I mean, like we mentioned earlier, like I think the strongest part about the game, which is the gameplay part, which is a pretty significant part of any game, right? You want to have fun playing the game, and I think the implementation of like ideas on a tactical level is pretty interesting here because, like we mentioned earlier, it's kind of more like Mario Rabbids, where you have this when it's a character's turn, you sort of have like these XCOM like lines that show the perimeter of like where they can move to, but you have free control, direct control over where you move that character, whether it be behind cover, and there's half cover and full cover. You can choose to like you shoot your firearm from behind like cover, or you can go and melee enemies. And this is an interesting choice because when you say you go up to an enemy and you go melee them out of cover, you take their spot on where they were, and you also leave them out of the open, where they're in a state where you can do critical attacks, and that'll lead to like a one more situation, so you can actually stack additional turns because of pushing them out into the open with a melee thing. And you can also do this like with persona attacks as well, where persona attacks will ignore cover, and you can like push past their cover and push them out into the open. There's all based on like the very, very limited time that I got to play like in the opening stages. I'm sure this whole dynamic is fleshed out more.
There's
as you
also
play through the game.
this seems like it might be if the strategy in the game in terms of like if you really learn how to play it, if you like knock an enemy down and then you surround them with your 3 characters, you can do a tri attack. I mean an all out attack like in that whole triangle. And you can, if you're pretty smart in your positioning, you can pretty much encompass almost like a whole battlefield in one of these triangle attacks and wipe out lots of enemies at a time.
It's also pretty interesting, like when it comes to movement, because like you're not locked by like a strict character turn order. Like you can move a
Right.
character and then switch to another character and position them, and then go back or go to another character and position that. You can keep kind of like making like find like minute like positioning movement positions.
As long as your character has not used all of like their actions they have available, you can move them around in your phase. So
Yeah.
like you can really like it's things like that where there's so many neat little like details that just feel so good to play in the moment. Like
There are a few like some of the side quests that you can do, like the side missions that do kind of play up some of the mechanics, like making sure you really know how to use them. I'm almost done with the first world. But some of the early quests, there's like get to the end of this kind of stage within 1 turn, and you don't have enough movement to make it from one end of the stage to the other in 1 turn. So what you do is you use like your other 2 characters to like set up enemies on the field, and then you move your 3rd character and get like your critical hits, your 1-mores on them, so you get like extra movement. So there's a few kind of neat things like that. where it's
Yeah, the
like,
side quests are like really good.
Yeah, those are my favorite, like, well, at least gameplay wise, they're my favorite parts of the game because they really stress your knowledge of the combat system, and it really kind of showcases how much thought was put into the gameplay, which is what makes everything else a bit more frustrating.
They feel
Right.
like puzzles, which I really like when SRPGs do. It's why Disgaea 4 is one of my favorites, because every stage feels like a little puzzle and not like a strategy game of sorts. It's neat. It's a fun way to like take a spin on the gameplay they had
Yeah,
set
yeah.
up.
I think I kind of understand for that frustration, but I think both Colin and James, like, they see glimpses of like what could have been a really excellent game in this because of the core strength of the gameplay, and like seeing the all the surrounding parts of the game kind of crumble apart over time, and it's like, fuck, there could have been a really 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 cool game,
Yeah.
like, as an overall package here, and I understand that frustration.
They made
Uh,
me pay $20 to hear Lotus Juice, and he's barely in the song.
That's
Gone.
crazy. That's crazy.
0 out of
actually.
10.
And that's man, and it just I don't know how you kind of communicate to Atlas at this point. It's like, please stop being really shitty with your monetization, because it just progressively getting worse as time goes on, because that's people pay for it. The people they're not discouraged from doing it because it gets them results,
And I'm sure this is a much easier pill to swallow if you, let's say, got the game for free on Game Pass, which is what I assume most people are doing. So they were like, okay, well, we got to get we got to still make money off of those people. Like, I imagine most of the DLC sales for this game are going to be from people who got it on Game Pass. Because it's like, imagine you got this game for free. You didn't pay any money for Tactica. So $20 for this little thing right here, that's not that bad. But if you pay, like, it's a lot better than paying like 80. Like 80 for this content, as much as I like the DLC, that's not worth it. Like, get it on Game Pass, wait for a sale. I just don't think it's really a full price kind of game.
and I'm looking at Persona 3 Reload's Steam page right now. It's a $70 game with an $80 deluxe edition and a $100 premium edition, all digital. And then,
Damn,
like,
what
some
the
of these
hell
are
are
going to be
they including?
included in those editions, but there's already 10 DLC things listed, like 3 costume sets, 2 Persona sets, 2 BGM, or 3 Persona sets, 2 BGM sets. It's just like, okay, that's fun.
And then there's like one unannounced thing that they're like, kind of keeping under wraps, and it might be story DLC for all of you too.
Oh wait, they are? I haven't heard about that.
There's like one unannounced thing for DLC for Persona 3. I don't know if they've ever announced it, but last time I checked, it was unannounced.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It'll be you'll play a campaign with Strega.
It's it's fascinating how like Persona 3 Reload has the pre-order chart like on the website.
Oh yeah. uh,
But what's
Uh,
wild is that it's like, well, I'm not saying it's like, oh no, it's fine when they do it for Reload. At the very least, if when I'm buying Reload, my $70 are getting me like what I am going to guess is like 100 to 130 hour RPG, like a really meaty experience. So
yeah.
my brain can kind of like justify like, okay, like $70 is still a lot for a game. If you don't want to spend 70 for a game, I'm not like, it's whatever. I think you're justified for doing that.
The cynical approach is like, because like you already know what you're expecting because you played this game before too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But your argument is that Tactica is maybe less than 30 hours long, and it's a like $60, $80 game.
yeah, it's a $60 game with about 10 hours of unique content
And a DLC pack, day one DLC.
with 5 hours of content. It just doesn't line up. Like,
Yeah.
I was disappointed. Like, again, I think the game is still good. Like, we have been harping on it. I don't want to make anybody like confused, but just like, yeah, someone who is typically like immune to like how like rough Atlas's DLC practices are, because overall, like, I know I'm getting a good game that I like. This one just kind of hit me. It was like, this just feels weird.
It's also because of the legacy of Persona 5 Strikers as well, which is like
Mhm.
a really, really good spin-off game.
Well,
Like, it's-
because it isn't. Well, it's technically not a spin-off. It's a canon sequel.
But regardless, like
Yeah.
it is still like the position it serves in the series is Persona 5 spin-off, but it's just a very good game. Like while playing this, I wasn't thinking, oh, I gotta play more Tactica. I was like, I really want to replay Strikers, or I really want to replay Royal.
I'm just gonna mention that I really, really love Persona Q2, but I'm also
Oh,
like
that game's great.
I'm also
Yeah.
like a dungeon RPG head, so I like both. I actually like both the Q games more than the mainline games, but that's just more of a genre preference for me. So
Q2 is one of the better spin-offs in the series. It's a shame that it's stuck on 3DS and then bombed horribly, so Atlas is probably never going to remaster it.
Well, I mean, they remastered Atrian Odyssey, so there's some
None
chance.
of the 3DS games, though.
I wonder what they were expecting for that Etrian Odyssey remaster in terms of like effort they put into it, sales they expected. You know, because Etrian Odyssey I love, but like I don't know. I wonder what they have
God,
planned for it.
if we really want to talk about Atlas pricing, the fact they
Yeah.
did that
Oh.
remaster trilogy and it's like $90, sir or madam, it's like what the fuck?
If you bought one
the-
Etrian Odyssey game, it's $40.
it's
and, like-
Listeners, if you want to get into Etrian Odyssey and you only have $40 to buy one of those 3 games on Steam or Switch, just play 3.
Yep.
Yep.
three's
You
the
know
best
that's
one.
probably going to be a lot cheaper for like Black Friday sales, though.
Yeah.
But it's I think it's just one of those weird things where the Etrian Odyssey like re-release, like those are fine games, but like I think like we're talking about like the biggest like thing working as is the monetization structure for them.
Yeah, I was gonna buy it until I saw the price. I was like, fuck no, I already have the DS version, so I was
Yeah.
like, forget it.
Oh, it's just wild, very wild.
I bought them on Steam on launch only because there was like a Green Man Gaming sale where it made them like $60.
It's still pretty steep for.
But that
I-
is still pretty like
Yeah,
I just
I'm not in any rush to replay. Like I really love 3, but I'm not in any rush to replay it. You know, but if there's a brand new Etrian Odyssey game up there day one,
do they announce the sales for the
No,
remasters?
We have no idea.
we don't
Oh.
know. It's
Oh.
probably sold. It's probably sold well
Fine.
enough, but it's like
it's also going to be like hard to like track down their sales too because of the way that Sega reports that it's like it's by series, right? And it's like they would say Etrian Odyssey series. Are
So
sold.
sometimes Sega will individually announce milestones, like they recently announced Strikers hitting 2 million. But in their financial reports, they always group it by franchise. So yeah, it's like, and I don't even know if they usually don't mention Etrian Odyssey because they don't release an Etrian Odyssey every year. But they have like Yakuza sales, Persona sales, Sonic sales. They're all as like just grouped as like a franchise rather than individual titles.
So you have to do your own guesswork on like, okay,
Yeah, like they're like
last time
the Persona 5 series has sold 9 million, and we're like, well, we know that Strikers is 2 of that million, and we know Royal is like 3 of that million, and I guess let's just kind of guess Dancing was like, I don't know, a few 100,000, maybe a million. I
5
don't know.
copies.
So yeah, it's you kind of have to like sort of do the estimating and the math about which copy actually sold, and also one kind of weird thing about they separate like Persona 5 Royal and Persona 5 Royal Remaster. They call like the ports a remaster, like financially. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, that is.
Like they make a distinction.
I mean,
Yeah, yes.
Capcom does that whenever they release remasters too.
Yeah, like if you go to Capcom's top best-selling games, like Resident Evil 4 or 5 are on there like 3 or 4 different times because they count them as separate releases. And I don't mean just like Resident Evil like 4 Remake, which is clearly a different game. I mean like
Yeah.
Resident Evil 5 and then Resident Evil 5 Gold Edition and then like Resident Evil 5. Like,
Yeah, think about how many
current
times
generation.
Resident Evil 4 got released on how many platforms
Yeah.
since it's like GameCube release.
Mhm.
Ugh, yeah.
Apparently, you can get Reload on key sites, like official ones, for like $60 right now.
Yeah, I was looking into
Bargain.
that too.
There you go. The huge discount. It's always weird, like because like the quote unquote standard price of games is $70. So it's like you have a sale and it's $60 and it's on sale.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
knowing Colin, especially since he ordered a Steam Deck OLED,
Yes.
he's gonna play Persona 3 Reload on that thing.
Okay, so since we're on the topic, so Steam Deck OLED pre-orders came out this week. I didn't really, I wasn't in the market to get an OLED immediately. What was it like
The
getting
site
it?
died for 30 minutes.
The site died for 30 minutes, and then within the next hour, people realized that Valve had completely trolled scalpers. I'm pretty sure, like yesterday, you could still buy a limited edition. I'm gonna check right now and see if it's still in stock as of noon Pacific on Saturday. So let's see.
Okay.
You can still buy a limited edition.
Okay. All right, that's pretty good. That's way better than when the initial wave of Steam Deck pre-orders. So
Wasn't there
that's-
like this guy on Twitter that bitched about that
Yeah.
they print
He went
more
into
and
my-
it's not limited? It's like, how dare you, Steve?
He went into my replies because I was like, wow, this is still like available like 9 hours later, and he was like, man, I'm gonna get a refund. It's not limited enough. And I just quote retweeted with a screenshot. I was like, this is one of the most pathetic replies I've ever gotten.
it's not limited enough. Okay. Well,
But also, James, you are correct. I do plan to play this mostly on my OLED. Having said that, I did buy that August edition for PS5. I just want that
I
statue.
did too, actually.
That copy is probably going to either go to my roommate or just stay like wrapped. I just wanted that statue. I
That
plan
is
to play this
understandable.
entire thing either on my Series S or, which I doubt, probably mostly going like it
It's
is
already Steam Deck
verified.
yeah, it's Steam Deck
Oh,
verified. So it's
I
like
need-
it's been verified for at least a month. So
That is like at the moment, out of all those games coming out in that period of time, because it's slammed with releases at the beginning of next year, it's Persona 3 for me. It's a hard choice, but that's going to be the one I put all my time into.
I don't blame anyone for picking which camp they want to. There's like 6 different camps early next year of like, which long ass RPG do you want to play? So,
And meanwhile, we have like, I'm going to be playing Banishers, and Josh is going to be playing the Thaumaturge.
Thaumaturge. Hell yeah! Adam and I are the niche RPG camp.
Yep.
I'm gonna be playing Shiren the Wanderer, assuming we don't get a code from the Japan side.
Yeah.
I'm
But
going to
also-
be basic and play the big games.
But also, I'm also
basically-
doing Infinite Wealth reviews, so I mean, I also have. I'm tossing my hat in that camp because I'm.
And wasn't there some quote from some interview where they're like, if you play Infinite Wealth and marathon it, you're going to make yourself sick because it's so long.
It's like, why do you hate
Great.
reviewers?
Thank you. That's exactly what I want to hear. So surely
This
Saga
game
will
is
be
dangerous to
better.
your health.
Some people will read that and be like, hell yeah, that sounds awesome. I read that and it's like, this game's pacing is probably gonna be dog shit.
We'll see. I don't know. I'm scared. Hopefully, Sega releases review codes for Infinite Wealth very early. Hopefully tomorrow, actually.
That would be
That'd
awesome.
That'd be great.
I hope they do the same for that and Strikers, because
You mean
oh,
Reload?
yeah, Reload. My bad. Reload, where it's like these are massive games that every site is gonna want to like cover. Please give people time.
You gotta imagine that it's like almost ready if they've already verified it on Steam Deck.
Well, what
Oh,
listeners
God,
may not
imagine.
realize is Yakuza Like a Dragon, it's number 7. That code was late, and
Yeah,
that game is
very
pretty
late.
long. And
Yeah.
then they deleted Josh's save file at the end just to rub it in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that was the fucked up thing about it. It's like if you
We're-
didn't get the PC, the PC version of Yakuza Like a Dragon review in time on launch day, or the embargo day, they deleted saves. So
Like,
you were either done or
you were
weren't.
80% of the way through the game. Sorry, you're
Yeah.
now you're 0% of the way through the game.
Yeah.
Nice.
Jesus.
So I got it done, but man, it was a brutal review process for that one.
Yeah, not gonna point any fingers, name any names, but there's also some anxiety, like internally, about some other RPGs are coming up that no code's been sent out yet. It's like,
Mhm.
oh god damn it!
Yeah.
I'm in danger.
So yeah, that's Persona 5 Tactica, Steam OLED, and review
The game
code,
industry.
Existence. Yeah, game industry.
By the way, that
Yeah.
everyone make it sound. You know what this feels like? This feels like watching a Dragon Ball Z movie. Not super Dragon Ball Z movie, where it can't take place canonly, but it's too short to be like the main experience.
Oh, for
Yeah.
Tactica?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tactica is total filler.
Yeah, it's so weird where they decided to place it, because I guess it takes place like a day after you fight Shido. That's like the only time it really could take place.
Not
Well,
to mention, like, again, not a real big spoiler. The way that the game ends literally writes it out of having any sort of relevance whatsoever in the greater like Persona 5 storyline.
Yeah, sounds
It's
about right.
it's so funny.
I mean, like these spin-offs should always be like taken like they should never be taken as like this is the new real canon, because like Atlas, like back in Persona Q and Q2 they're like, yeah, these are canon games, they totally happen. It's like, I believe you. They
Yeah.
totally
No,
met
they
the
literally
power-
said Persona Q is canon, even though the end of Persona Q is we're all gonna forget about this. Okay,
It's all just
and
dream,
it took
guys.
place in like a hyperbolic time chamber or something, so it didn't actually take any time.
yeah,
Very weird.
it's just appreciate them for what they are and don't think about like
Yeah,
larger
that's
Exactly,
it's,
yeah.
don't. Yeah, canon. We all love canon.
like even in Strikers was like a quote unquote canon sequel. It's like, are we ever going to see those cool characters again in it? Probably not.
There's gonna be like a Strikers 2 where they somehow explain like why Kasumi wasn't there and like
Right.
why no one bothered to mention her. She's like, oh yeah, I was traveling and you guys just didn't want to bother me or even think about me.
Yeah.
That's the canon explanation.
They asked if she wanted to go on the road trip, and she was busy that week.
I was at a gymnastics competition. Duh.
They'll if they ever did that, they would announce exactly how they're gonna explain it in one line, and then the game will go on. Okay, so so yeah, that's Persona 5 Tactica, now out on pretty much every platform. I think it's on Switch. Yeah, it's on Switch too, right?
Yeah, it is on Switch. It's fine on there.
Mhm.
Load times are really bad.
Mm. Okay, there you go. Moving on, we have a remake for Super Mario RPG. I believe Scott wrote the review for us, right, Adam?
Yep.
And then, so and that's he was a very big fan of Super Mario RPG back then, and he said, like the original, there's still one of the best beginner RPGs. So if you're just looking to see what the genre is about, Super Mario RPG is a pretty good gateway into that, because for us for who really want deep RPG mechanics, Super Mario RPG isn't really that kind of game. It's a very simple, very charming RPG that contextualizes the world of Mario into what if we took the mechanics of Mario into an RPG format. I know you've been working on guides and other stuff for that, Adam, on Super Mario RPG. What do you think about this remake?
I guess for context, I never played the original version on Super Nintendo because I never had a Super Nintendo. My first console was Nintendo 64. So I did play the original version when it came out like on the Wii Virtual Console in 2007 or 8 or whenever that was. So I like went back and played it. And this was after I had played like Paper Mario, Super Mario and Luigi and those games that are different like kind of development teams, because one of those is Intelligent Systems, one of those is Alpha Dream, rest in peace. But like, so I kind of came to it after the fact, and just I'll admit I'm not a huge fan of the original game. I think it's fine, but like I think I had already played so many like RPGs and at that point where it's just kind of like, okay, this is sort of like you said, an intro level RPG, and it's meant for, it seems like targeting younger audience, people who don't really play RPGs, things like that. So I wasn't really in that audience. But I think it's fine. I actually do prefer, I think, just the Paper Mario and Mario Luigi games. Not all of them. Like Sticker Star is awful, but just kind of broadly, I will take every opportunity I can to say that Sticker Star is terrible. But anyway, but yeah, it's a very charming, kind of quirky RPG, and you can imagine back in the day when like Mario was, the side scroller game, and then you had like classic Final Fantasy games. Like you would never even think of these in the same breath. Like, oh, these are two different genres from two different places, and then all of a sudden it's like Square Enix is making a Mario RPG. It's like, what? Where did that come from? So kind of this crossover you never expected.
Yeah, so to contextualize that, like the Super Nintendo original version, SquareSoft
Yeah.
made Mario
Or
RPG.
I said Square Enix. It's Square Soft.
Yeah, he said Square Enix.
Yeah,
So
Squaresoft.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And this one, we don't exactly know who made this new remake of Super Mario RPG, if I
it's
understand
Art
correctly.
Plaza, is it? Like
we
the
know
Dragon Quest
now
games.
they were
Oh, okay.
kind of they were very coy about it. It's Art Piazza, which is the team that developed like several of the Dragon Quest DS and 3DS like remake / ports, as well as like the Romancing Saga 2 and 3 ports, like the modern
Okay.
versions of those. And all of those ports, for the most part, are pretty well done. In terms
I was
of like,
playing Dragon Quest 4 last night. I've been doing that to like prepare for Dark Prince, and yeah, that's like a really great version of the game.
yeah.
I think the DS versions are probably better than the PS2 version.
Yeah, you just got that party chat issue with 4.
Which you can actually
Not-
get a
not the mobile
patch.
version. Yeah.
Yeah, you can
You
patch-
can play the mobile
right.
version, and now there is a patch that
Right.
requires a Game Shark code to work properly.
That's awesome.
That's how I've been
I love
playing
Game
it.
Shark. Anyways,
Yeah.
so yeah, they for some reason Nintendo just like refused to say that this was the developer, and IGN, Rebecca Valentine, is that her name? Actually put up just kind of like an editorial about this, where they like basically reached out to Nintendo about, hey, who's developing this? It looks like it might be Art Piazza, and they basically just wouldn't say. And then even when it leaked, they're like, please don't say this in your review. And it's like, why? Why are you hiding this?
That's crazy that they basically said, please don't say this. in your review.
I think one of the people who commented, who writes for another site, they were asked literally, don't say who developed this, like straight out.
Why?
It's like, why? And we've actually have talked about this before on some podcasts, I believe, with like Square Enix sometimes isn't always so upfront about who's developing what. Sometimes they are. Like they were pretty upfront about Gemdrops developing the Star Ocean remake, which is great.
Yeah.
But there are a few
we
times.
didn't know who was developing Harvestella until I think it came out.
And same with like Paranormasight and a couple years back, Trials of Mana remake, which those are both Zine, or if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But yeah. And then I think we learned that Toy Logic is making what's it called? The Splatoon, not Splatoon game.
Oh gosh,
Home Star?
Yes, Foam
Yeah,
Stars.
Foam Stars. Foam
Yeah,
Stars
and-
hype.
but they were pretty upfront with the near remake.
Yeah, so sometimes Square Enix
Overworld.
is in that boat. But anyways, yeah, so this game is being developed by Art Piazza. I actually looked up what this team has done because I recognize the name. I'm like, oh yeah, they did those Dragon Quest ports and they did those Romancing Saga ports. What have they done recently? I'm curious. And if you go to Wikipedia, there's nothing listed past 2019, which is when the Romancing Saga 3 port came out.
So they've probably been working on this since at least like 2020.
Yeah, or they might. I know sometimes these support studios, sometimes they might be contracted to work on stuff where they're not in the credits. That happens sometimes, where like their name is not slapped on it in any way. So there might have been working on stuff that we'll never know about. But yeah, they weren't credited for anything for the last couple of years until this, which they are credited. Once you get to the credits of the game, you'll see all the staff from both Nintendo and Art Piazza about
Nintendo
this.
does not want you to mention it to anyone.
Yeah,
That they
don't mention it. We're gonna get in trouble for mentioning it.
That's it.
Anyways,
Right, that's the whole
so the
world about
remake, it's not like a ground up remake. It's kind of in the vein, that remakester vein of like the Xenoblade re-release, where it's pretty much the same skeleton, same dialogue, same map design, and everything else, but all with a completely different visual style and coat of paint. The original game was like sort of, it kind of had that like 2D, 3D kind of look, almost like the Donkey Kong Country games in a sense, where it was 2D but kind of faked it to make it sort of look 3D in places. And then this version is obviously fully 3D rendered, but the layouts are the same. You can pretty much follow like a walkthrough of the original game and it'll work here because everything's the same in terms of just like structure. But obviously completely new visuals, very good looking. It took me just a little while to get used to like the really stubby Mario, like really short arms, really short legs Mario, and he's already kind of stubby. He's even more stubby now. the game does add those like it adds a few kind of fully rendered like full on 3D cutscenes. They're just like little minor scenes, and there's no voice acting or anything. But like when you first meet Mallow in the Mushroom Kingdom, he's getting, he's chasing around Krako who stole his coin. And before that was just like a little like sequence in the original game, but now it's a full on like scene.
And like when there's a tweet that went viral with a clip from the video from when Gino, the star gets possessed by the star.
Yeah.
It's like very, very funny caption for that, by the way.
Oh, I saw that tweet where it's like a toddler first learning how to walk and they run straight.
No. Toddlers upon gaining sentience, going for the exposed corner of a table.
Yeah.
Anyone who has toddlers will understand. They seem to be drawn towards corner tables and anything else that they could bump into and hurt themselves. But anyways, so the game. Go ahead.
Sorry. Pretty sure that if there's anything that Square Enix themselves worked on, it was probably those videos, because they look very much like the sort of pre-rendered videos that you see in Square Enix.
I saw in the credits there was some company listed for like visuals, and it's probably some smaller Japanese just like video visual house that kind of helped out on that. I don't think it was Square Enix. It might have not even been like a game developer, just like a team of artists making some sort of cinematic. I don't remember off the top of my head, but there's in all these credits, there's always a bunch of these smaller places that contribute here and there. Anyways, this game does add a lot of quality of life stuff, which is, we talked about this a couple weeks ago with Star Ocean. There's like an autosave now that saves on every single screen. So if you ever die, even though it's very unlikely because it's a very easy game, you don't lose for a lot of time. There's a lot of there's like a monster list now that you can see all the monsters. You can now swap members in and out of battle, which that actually is a pretty significant change in terms of, combat and structure. Where before you would pick like your 3 characters and that would be your battle team. But now it's Final Fantasy X like, where you have only 3 people that can participate, but you can swap them out at any time for free. So you basically have a team of 5 in every battle. You just have to swap them out. So that's a big change. There's a new change to the and this is actually one thing we sort of take for granted now. Mario RPG was, I don't know if it was the very first game, but it was probably the game that is what most well known for kind of being the earliest to have like a button timing when you hit an enemy to do additional damage or an additional effect, or on the flip side to protect yourself to take a little less damage with like a button timing. And that's become very commonplace. That's in all the different Mario RPGs, and other games like Sea of Stars that came out not too long ago have a similar mechanic. And so like this Mario RPG, again, I don't know if it's absolutely the very first one that had it, but it must have been like one of the first to have this sort of mechanic. That has been changed a bit, and this is also somewhat significant in that if you do like a single target attack, like you just do like a regular attack on a normal enemy, but if you time it perfectly, it does splash damage now. And that's actually somewhat significant because it makes those sort of random encounters, well, they're not random, but those simple encounters, just regular enemies, trash mobs, they go by a bit quicker now, because if you get the splash damage right, you can take out all the enemies in just a few, like 1 or 2 or 3 hits.
So it also affects your decision making process now as well, because if they take splash damage, you kind of get indicators of like, is this enemy like low on health? It's like, okay, well, I won't target this enemy deliberately because I'll let the splash damage take care of them.
Exactly. Yep.
So, yeah, it's pretty interesting like gameplay changes to pretty much make it easier than
the original game was already pretty easy, and this version is easier. And our review, Scott's review, as well as a couple others like Alex is our boss, but he wrote the review on BG247. They pretty much had the same. It's sort of a criticism where it's like, it's not a deal breaker. Like, yeah, the game is kind of even easier now, which is a little bit disappointing. It's not like this doesn't ruin the game. It's just sort of disappointing that they added these mechanics, but the game doesn't seem to be like balanced around them. So it's even easier than it already was. So that's just kind of how it is. And one thing that is sort of like One thing that can throw a wrench into balance, in a sense, is that every once in a while you run into an enemy that's just basically like, kind of like, they're like a shiny Pokemon or something. They're just like a random, stronger version of an enemy. And they have like, I don't know, triple the health and they do significantly more damage and they're random. They're not like incredibly threatening, but they can, if you're not paying attention, they can do some damage. And so you'll run into these guys every once in a while. It's just like a powered up version of an enemy. And you do have to actually like focus a little bit. So it's not totally you're just, sleepwalking through battles. They also drop frog coins, which is also kind of interesting because in the original version of the game, frog coins were limited. You could only get so many, I believe. Where now, because of this, you can run into enemies that just drop them. Kind of like SP in Star Ocean 2. It used to be a limited resource, now it's not. And you use frog coins for various things. There's like a special shop that takes them that has special equipment or items or whatnot, and things like that. Anyways, but I think the strength of the game, and I think anyone would agree with this, is that it's super charming. It's kind of quirky. It's kind of weird. Like it's kind of got this sort of like bizarre, like Alice in Wonder land, sort of dreamy, kind of weird bizarreness to it. That's kind of enticing.
Mario gets insulted by a kid, and Mallow has to hold him back from trying to punch him. That is not an exaggeration. That just happens.
Yeah, it's true. Very, very violent, this Mario fellow.
I'm trying to find the GIF, but I can't. Anyways, it's a very charming game, very weird. I think Bowser is like cute in a way, where he's sort of like a Tsundere. Yes, I said it. Where he like tries to put on like a tough guy act, and he's like, "Well, I'm just gonna join you because I need to get my castle back." Yeah, and he's trying to be like super tough guy. There's this really cute animation of him like crying. He's got like these like droopy tears falling off his face, which is kind of cute. But there's a lot of weird, goofy enemies, like Booster. Booster is very strange.
Kroko is very strange. I always found that a very strange enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When do you get Bowser in your party?
Booster
I'm like
power.
I'm pretty early on. I think the game's like, it's good, I guess. I didn't play the original, so I don't have nostalgia for this one. But it's fine. But maybe I just need to wait for like to get more party members than just Mallow or the whatever his name is,
Dino,
who is just kind of annoying.
How far have you gotten?
I think oh god, I just went back to that first little town and things are like, oh, the shy guys are there and they're taking over that. It's pretty early on. I typically don't like games with action prompts on, like turn-based games that have action prompts in them. Little quick time events.
Yeah.
I don't think they're bad, but it doesn't click in my brain. Like I don't know how to describe it. It's just I don't like it. And I'm really bad at doing them. So I typically don't have fun playing them.
So when you see like that, when you see the super jump skill, you're like, oh fuck this.
Exactly. It's like I cannot consistently get the timing. There's like a disconnect between my brain and the reaction time.
Right.
Like
I get the timing for me personally by using how I played in Super Nintendo. But if I try to follow that exclamation mark in the screen, it fucks up my timing for some reason.
Yeah, I never used the exclamation mark.
So I was playing this game through Elgato Capture, which adds just a little bit of lag.
Oh no!
So I have to like preempt my button prompts. I had to press it just a split second earlier than I would think I would have to.
So that's why it's really funny when everyone's like, "Oh, this game's super easy." I died on the first screen.
Oh.
It hasn't happened since, but like, I had a similar problem with those South Park RPGs, where everyone was like, "Oh no, they're super easy. You don't even need to worry about anything." And I played them, and I just couldn't do them. It's very simple inputs, but my brain just doesn't work with it. I had to play those games on easy, and I still couldn't get through them.
I'm guessing you never played the Mario and Luigi or Paper Mario games when you grew up then. Yeah, that explains it. Because
didn't play the Paper Mario games either.
Yeah.
I've just missed out on all these. I'm enjoying this. I think it's really cool. And once I did get into it a bit more, like, yeah, it is pretty. You don't have to think too hard about anything here. But yeah, I feel like the appeal of this really is just the world and like the story and those moments of going, oh, they adapted it like this Mario mechanic like that. That's cool. So
Yeah,
I see the appeal.
yeah, that's very much the appeal. Like, especially when you're younger, you've played the Mario games. It's like, oh, this is like this thing from Mario that I'm used to. This is how they made it into like it contextualized it into an RPG.
And it's like it's not a super long one. Like you said, you're early on, but I think you're like 40% through the game or something like that.
No way.
The level cap is 30.
I'm only on level like my character's level 5 right now. I don't even have like Bowser yet.
Yeah,
You
you
Bowser
don't
wait,
halfway
oh,
through.
okay.
yeah, you don't have
Yeah,
you don't have
you have
you
Gino, right? You have
No.
Gino.
no.
Okay. I was confused because you said that you Shy Guy is something, so I thought you were talking about the stuff after the third star. Never mind.
Okay, you had me
Yes.
scared for a second. I was like, oh, what?
You might have the first star from Claymore.
From-
I don't even think I have that.
Oh, okay.
You're
Yeah,
you're still
you're
fairly
definitely-
early on. Yeah,
Anyway,
you're
so yeah, in
early
terms
on.
of the length of the game, it's like 12 hours, 13 hours. I think Scott even
Oh.
said 11 hours.
Is that including all the post game?
That doesn't
No.
include post game. So yes, there is a new post game. It's not that long. The post game is interesting. It basically what it is it takes bosses from the original game, but it not only powers them up, but it gives them like a gimmicky mechanic. And I don't want to like spoil this. I know that sort of sounds silly, but like spoiling a mechanic. But like here's just one example. One of the bosses you fight in the main game is Punchinello, who basically throws bombs. And what he does in the post-game version of him is he's basically invulnerable. You cannot damage him. So what he does is he throws out bombs, and he even has like a really coy like line that he says, or not coy, it's I should say like he lays it on thick, where he's like, "Ha, I'm invincible with the mix between my invincible body and these bombs that can damage anything is unbeatable." And you're like, wait a minute. So what you do is you like turn around his bombs by hitting them, and then they run into him instead to damage him. So it's sort of like this kind of twist on the game mechanics where you can't just like use your most strongest attacks on him to like beat him up. You actually have to like make sure you get as many attacks in on the bombs he throws as possible to turn him around to like damage him instead of you. So there's just, it's just like a mildly interesting, twist on the mechanics. They're like a puzzle, kind of like we said earlier with Tactica, in terms of like figuring out how to beat the post game boss. And I'll just mention another one. You fight Booster again, and Booster, he's building a toy train. Booster is building a toy train, and if he finishes building it, it does 9,999 damage to you. So you're dead.
Oh yeah.
So you switch in and this is where the new game mechanics come in. So it like pops in your other two party members, your reserves. So in that boss fight, you kind of have to like make sure you always have a reserve available to pop him in to revive you. And then there's like a mechanic to like slow Booster down as he's building his toy train. So that's what I'm getting at, is that there's kind of like these gimmicky boss fights that are post game fights, and then it ends up with an ultimate like super game boss. That's not like crazy hard, but hard enough where you have to like at least strategize and use some items, no more hoarding items and things like that to beat them. So yeah, they've added that, which is it doesn't take too long. You can beat them all in an evening play session, but it's just kind of like a fun little bonus.
You need timing for them.
Yeah, it helps. You can do a lot of damage with the ultra jump skill that hits multiple times.
Uh-oh.
I can't play it then.
Colin's like, I'm filtered. That's it.
Yep, immediately.
Colin, don't you play rhythm games and fighting games?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't get it. Like, I think it's because I am playing a turn-based RPG.
Mm-hmm.
I should not be like...
You want to press the attack command, and then
I want it to
step
happen.
back. Yeah.
Well, think about it this way, Colin. Wait a second. Didn't you play Utuada Mono?
Didn't like it.
Oh no, you said the wrong word.
I feel like this happens frequently with me and James. He'll be like, wait a second, you've definitely played the Utewada Dumono games. And I'm like, no, I don't like those games.
Well, anyways,
okay,
big revelations on this podcast episode.
But yeah, like every single Mario RPG, whether it's Paper Mario, even like some of the Paper Mario like less RPG versions of them, and Mario and Luigi, they all have action prompts. Like basically all that carried forward from this game. And again, I know those are like different developers or whatnot, but some of that kind of DNA kind of filtered forward in that way.
I mean, I'm like getting used to it more. It's just it is a hard adjustment period that I'm not
It makes sense.
Yeah, it's just it's a bit it's a bit of a learning curve.
Yeah.
And it's not even like, oh, just do this or do that. It's like, no, it's like a brain thing. I just can't entirely.
So, Colin, about the final boss in Drakengard 1, the very final boss.
I haven't done it yet. That game sucks ass. It's so fucking bad. Don't even get me started.
It's okay, Colin. By the time you get used to the timing prompts for this, you'll be ready for the Thousand Year Door remakes early next year.
Yeah, no, I'm actually pretty excited about that one because that's the one I continuously hear everyone go like, out of all of them, you got to play this one.
You should also play Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga.
Is that the one on Game Boy?
Advance. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I could play. I played a bit of that and I thought it was really really fun. But like, I didn't really get far.
The biggest issue with the Thousand Year Door, in my opinion, is that there's several places in the game where you have to do a bit of backtracking. But anyways, my hope is that is like, if I wanted them to address anything in that game in a remake or a remaster or whatever you want to call it, it's that there's just a few places in the game where you kind of have to retrace your steps just a little bit too frequently. Anyways, that's just an aside. So,
all right. Well, any final thoughts or on Super Mario RPG?
So yeah, we're not really the audience for this. This game, it's sort of like, I guess there's sort of two audiences. One for, younger gamers, children, and I'm not trying to be like demeaning, like this is a game for kids. You're like, no, it's genuinely
a Mario
This
game.
is a game for kids. Like this is a game for people who aren't very familiar with RPG mechanics and leveling up and numbers. And they're, it's a very introductory game. And a lot of people our age, or at least my age, like played this when it first released, and it's sort of like a nostalgia to revisit it. Now that's not me exactly because I never played the original version, but people my age have.
When I went to pick up my copy from my local game store, the person behind me who had pre-ordered it was obviously in his like late 40s.
Yeah,
you could tell it was like a nostalgia thing for him.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of Nintendo's just market nowadays. Like I'm sure back in the day it was, oh yeah, make games for kids. Now it's like, okay, make games for people who played it when they were kids,
and kids
mostly because they got the money, and yeah, kids at heart and kids, but mostly kids at heart.
Fire Emblem 4 remake, guys, please.
Baby game.
Yes.
I could see them announcing another Fire Emblem next year because it'll have been a year.
Probably the like January or February direct or something.
I wouldn't expect it to be like a mainline
Game
one.
Awards.
So we just got one, but I think like another Echoes like re-release is very plausible. So
I want it. Echoes is still my favorite Fire Emblem
I
game.
like Echoes a lot. It's actually kind of funny when I look at like the Fire Emblem games I reviewed. Like Echoes is the one I gave the highest score to. So
it is definitely,
even though it has like clear drawbacks because of its relative simplicity, I just like the presentation and other things about it so much.
It's just ruined by one thing: desert maps. But other than that, it's almost a perfect game to me.
It's the ideal Fire Emblem game.
It's a pretty good, well-rounded package.
Engage did so little for me this year that I actually forgot it came out during the whole Game Awards nominations.
Oh yeah, that's
it'll be interesting to see where discussion of that goes on at the end of the year.
Engage is very lopsided, where it's like great gameplay, like systems, but anything else is not. No.
The Tactica problem.
Yeah,
one might say. All right, well, that's Super Mario RPG. I'll talk briefly about what I've been up to. Colin, are you still good on time?
Yeah, I was gonna say this is probably where I need to head on out and get ready to just do my usual Saturday things. But as always, it has been a pleasure. I want to try to schedule things out for an upcoming game, keeping it vague to maybe pop on back on the podcast. So hopefully you won't have another, what was it like? Was it a couple months or was it a year since the last time?
No,
it was a while.
You were on here earlier this year for Octopath Traveler 2.
Oh yeah, that felt like a year ago for real though.
It was almost a year ago. It was like 8 months.
Yeah, so I'll try to be back soon.
Yeah,
For a certain
thanks for
little
joining
game.
us as always, Colin. Always
Yeah.
appreciated to have you here. Talk about games with you. So it was great. Thank you very
Glad
much.
I could come out and then just Pepe Sylvia about the game industry. Very fun. But I will talk with you again soon and have fun with the rest of the podcast.
Yeah,
Yep,
don't
thank
be a
you.
stranger.
Yeah, bye bye.
Bye bye. So I got to play a new release this week. I bought it and beat it on the same day. Actually,
Damn, must be a very
yeah.
short game then.
It's called Small Saga. It's a Kickstarter project. It's been in development, so pretty much a solo developer by the name of Daria Nogani. And they recently, released it a few days ago. And yeah, it's MSRP is $20 USD, and I beat it in 6.5 hours
Does it
from
have
start.
day one DLC?
Does not have day one
Well,
DLC.
that's good.
It was a pretty solid experience. It is a turn-based RPG. It's relatively simple. Like Super Mario RPG is a pretty relatively simple game. I think one of my main complaints about the game is like enemies feel like they die too fast. By like once you reach the halfway point, like you kind of once you get a solid party and develop their skills, and you start developing a game plan, it's pretty easy to shred through HP like nothing.
Okay, so this
Oh,
game,
mhm.
I've caught it on the periphery
Yeah.
here.
Yes.
You're like a mouse or a rat,
Yes.
and you fight like
You
cats. So you're
you
like
are
Jerry fighting Tom, right?
you're pretty much like Cloud Strife, but a mouse. Pretty much.
Okay.
When I looked at the screenshots that you show us, I was like, "Is this the secret nymph?"
So like yeah, like the battles are very much like kind of reminiscent of Golden Sun, where you kind of see like a behind the back of your party members facing like a farther out enemy. So it has that perspective, like where you're kind of like over the shoulder of your party members. It has like a pseudo 3D visual style, but it's a 2D sprite game. But very very good art design and all around for it. So, like Adam mentioned, the core setup is your name is Verm. That's the main character. And this is a very very early spoiler, but it is the setup for the game where um you are pretty much part of this rat society, and often you go out with your kind of I forgot if there's like an older brother, but you go out like with an older almost like family member to go get food for like your rat society, and this takes place in like visiting what they consider heaven, and it's pretty much the surface world. And they go out and get seeds for their rat society because they're like their food. So but when they go up to heaven, it's kind of like this department store, and they use it to scavenge goods. So you'll on their way to like kind of get these seeds, they are not ambushed, but pretty much a human shows up like in a lab coat, like kind of like a hazard suit, and they call them the Yellow God, because it's so gigantic they can't hope to like match against it. So as they're trying to like get away from it, um, Verm's tail gets stuck on this mouse trap, and Lance, kind of the older brother figure, tries to, obviously uh, get the Yellow God's attention away from Verm because that's certain death for them.
I have to
So
interrupt you. I don't know why I
yeah,
thought of this.
yes,
Like this character living like they're living like underground or like um how do you put it? They're like in mouse holes and things like that. They're not so they're trying to get to like the surface world. Is that what they're trying to get?
no, they're kind of going on like their food run. So they go
Oh.
to the surface world to kind of get food, scavenge food from there, and then go back to the rat society. So it's not like the objective of them is just to survive. It's not to reach a certain place.
Oh.
It's just to keep on surviving, and they survive by like
Anyways, I
kind
was
of.
thinking of Gurren Lagann.
You're not. Yeah, it's not too far off from like
We're like
that
we're
kind of
living
underground
underground. We have to get
society.
to the
Yeah.
surface, and like we
Mhm.
have main character and his like older brother figure. And like, wait,
Mhm.
I
okay,
feel like
that's
that's
where my
like a
mind went.
story.
Okay,
I feel like that's a story with like rats. You know, most of it, they're always trying to get to the surface to find food. It's sort of like this same premise as like the secret nymph, sort of. You know,
Mhm.
it has like Miss
I've
Frisbee. Like
seen Secret of Nymph, but it was so long ago, I barely
I know
remember.
it
Yeah.
has Miss Frisbee has like trying to like take care of her sick son, and there's like they're bringing like this tractor that's gonna like rip open their like house or something like that. So they're trying to go out and find a way to save everybody. You know, kind of
So
like
yeah, so this opens on a pretty like like it's pretty heavy. So like yeah, so Lance gets the attention of this yellow god, and this plays out in a turn-based sequence where you're pretty much doing 0 damage. And it's a forced loss because the yellow god just basically picks up Lance and crushes it in his hand, and you see it like do more damage. It does like the first crunch is like maybe 12 damage. The next crunch is like 200 damage. The next crunch is like 3,000 damage. And you're like, you're long dead. Like Lance is long dead by each crunch, but like you see it. And then in the meanwhile, as Verb is trying to get away, Verb pretty much in a turn based once again, tries to hit the mousetrap, but doesn't do any damage. So instead, like you are forced to attack your own tail and slice off your own tail in this turn based battle. So you're basically doing damage to yourself to try to get away
damn, that
from.
sounds brutal.
Yeah, it's a pretty brutal opening. So after this, um, you get a time skip. It's like several like seasons later. Um, and like Vermin's pretty much like wants to is basically on a quest for revenge against this yellow god. And instead of a buster sword, he has like they have these things called god tools, which are basically things that are like come from the surface world. So like one of the god tools that that he stumbles upon is this pocket knife, and that's his main weapon is this pocket knife, and that's his buster sword pretty much. Um, and then you meet other party members along the way, like Shoban, that's like your pyromancer, and their weapon of choice is like a lighter. That's how they do fire magic is this lighter, which is very fun um, way to kind of contextualize that. Other party members is Bruce the Harlequin, which is your bard character. Very good at like healing allies, but most importantly, has the skill to give your character an extra turn. Um, and Gwen, which you meet later on, and they're kind of the lancer of the group. Specializes in like debuffing enemies, can like debuff their defense and their attack, so forth. It has and their tools like a scalpel. Um, and so as you're going throughout the game, you're kind of seeing this underground society of like what society like these rats have made for themselves. Like this is a central capital that you visit that has like a king that oversees like their townsfolk. You definitely see like an upper class and lower class struggle, and um it's a very very compact RPG that hits like very very well known um RPG sort of like story beats where you have sort of like the side quests where you can go off and see others, like very typical side quests. Like for example, this painter needs more paint, so you have to go to like this uh unmarked part of like the overworld map. So you go to it, and it's like you're visiting a classroom, and you get this like kind of small sample of paint, and as you're retreating, you're stopped by like these like family of turtles. They're like, hey, why are you stealing? Stealing, like don't fucking steal. It's bad. So like you're basically beating up this family of turtles, like because like they see you as a thief, and then after that, it's like, it's only a little bit of pain. You can go. Like it's not you're not really stealing that much after you kind of like beat them up. Another side quest might be like your typical fetch quest of like, hey, I need you to find this person because you're kind of doing this delivery quest for like someone. You kind of and they mistaken you for their apprentice, and that's like, I need you to deliver this to this person, and then we'll give you like a small amount of money for it. So like, and the interesting thing about this game is that there's no experience point system. You do level up, but you only level up during like certain story bosses or hardware encounters, or like or maybe doing a optional side quest. But there's no way to like really grind on enemies. You're not really there's not really any random encounters where like you're walking across like tiles and like a random encounter will show up. You'll see enemies on the field, but even if you engage in these fights, it's only to get like past them. You're not really doing them to like grind experience. You're just kind of going from one story beat to another, and these encounters will level you up. And you do get skill points per level up. Each character has a skill tree that is linear for the most part, but has branching points. And you get your typical more HP, more attack power, but your main goal in these skill trees is adding properties to your skills. So, for example, um, one of the one of the main gimmicks to Verm is Berserk state. You can go engage a skill to go into a Berserk state, and all his skills and all his normal hits will add additional hits. So one of the properties that he can learn is like this finishing blow property, where the final hit of any multi-hit attack that you do will do more damage. Which is pretty good for a character that is their main strength is dealing as much damage as possible. Another interesting decision that you make, like whether you want to go for this property or not for a skill, is the bard character. They have this skill called Encore, where if you put it on when you cast it on a party member, they get another turn immediately. And every time a character gets a turn, they replenish one energy point because your skills and even your basic attack consume energy points. Basic attack will consume one energy point, while skills may consume multiple, like two or three. So
So
one
I'm
of
looking
their
at some screenshots here, and like you get like three. It looks like you have 3 pips at least at one point in the game.
yeah,
So
you get, and then you can expand like the maximum cap on them, as you're filling out the skill tree.
okay.
But yeah, so one of the properties on that Encore is like you can also replenish energy, when one energy when you give a character another turn. So now their Encore is even better because you not only do you replenish their turn, you replenish one immediately, and upon getting their turn, they get another energy. So giving them their turn now gives them two basically energy points to deal with. So right away you can like engage in like skill. So it's very much a simplistic combat system of like attacking, defending, or using an item. But the way that you manipulate turn and energy economy in it is just like complex enough to not overstay its welcome. And it's like it adds interesting like decisions in combat and how you develop your character in it. It's not the most deep RPG in the world, but it's just deep enough to kind of like develop very very cool and eventually broken strategies depending on like how you develop your characters um, in it. Um, and just there's just an overwhelming amount of charm in the game, and like how they um kind of mimic human society, but in their own, but contextualized in a rat rodent society, because that's not all rats, right? You have different societies. You have like a mole society, right? Because Shoban is a mole. Bruce is a squirrel. And they have a much deeper storyline, like a certain story beat in the game. Um, that is deals with pretty like like heavy themes, because like Bruce comes from like a lineage of like red squirrels, and very very early on, like many years back, like they were driven out by like another uh type of like squirrel, like the gray squirrels, and like they pretty much kind of drove them out of their place and kind of displaced them and kind of wiped out the red squirrels. What does that what does that mean for Bruce after confronting that reality, of like visiting, his supposed homeland, and this homeland is gone pretty much. And it delves into that sort of stuff. But
I think this is like surface dwarves and subterranean dwarves. I think. I don't know. It feels like some fantasy thing. We have like elves and dark elves, or dwarves
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
underground
yeah.
dwarves.
So yeah, and so you explore different parts of society and societies in this kind of brief 6.5 hour adventure. But it's like, even though it's short, it's very dense, and there's not really much downtime. It's actually paced pretty well because it doesn't ever overstay its welcome. But like I said, one of my main complaints obviously is difficulty. There's no new game plus mode. There's no toggleable difficulty. So if you played an RPG, you kind of know will probably figure out how to break this game wide open pretty fast because you get to see like the entire skill trees and you get to like highlight, okay, you know I want to spec in this direction with this character because this skill seems good, and if it feels good to you, it's probably really really good for um for what the eventual endpoint of your battle strategies will be. Another thing that I didn't really like about this game is some of the writing and the dialogue utilizes like modern vernacular. Like one character shtick is saying "lol" out loud in their
As in like
in their
LOL or
yes,
LAWL?
no, like LOL, and then sometimes they'll say LOL, LOL, LOL in
Oh.
there. So
Mm.
that's kind of like a shtick. And then some of your responses feels out of character for that. Um, like one thing, the response to a character is like, "What do you think about the fashion?" It's like, "Oh, it's cool," or the other ones will be, "It's cringe," you know.
Oh,
Um, Another character is like a fashion will call themselves the Drip King, and then they're like, and then their sprite has like the black jacket, and like their stance is kind of like that meme picture.
the
Um,
Supreme shirt. Yeah, and you hear the Ultra Instinct music.
yeah, pretty much. So there's like instances where like it plays modern vernacular, and like most of the time it feels out of place and doesn't really make sense and like why they're speaking this way. It's kind of it's kind of almost just put in there, just kind of like wink and nod. It's like, ah, yeah, we know that like this is a popular thing people say these days, and doesn't really add like to the
Yeah, I get what you're
overall
saying, but
spirit of the story.
like I kind of feel like some of this is unavoidable, but like I don't know, 10 years from now, if someone's looking back at this game and someone says like drip, I don't know,
Yeah,
drip in 10 years might be like totally, like feels like old fashioned or something. I don't know. It
right.
just seems
It'd be
Mhm.
like kids saying "wicked" back in the '90s. It's like, oh
Yeah.
man, that's so wicked.
Mhm.
Like,
Oh yeah, I just think of rocket power from like Nickelodeon.
and
um,
then 10 years later, it'll be like an outdated term that no one uses anymore. And you're like,
right.
wonder what the hell they're
Yeah.
talking about.
But I think in general, I think it's a great, it was a great ride. It was a brief ride, like like I said, it's $20, but like in its first week, I think it's like a little bit cheaper than that. Um, and yeah, I mean, I just had a really great time with it. I'm very surprised that like just how it all came together and kind of has like some pretty meaningful things to say. Like you can definitely feel like the developer and all developer's intention of where they wanted to like take the story and what message they wanted to like convey to players with it. So there's some pretty smart writing despite kind of like some of the pitfalls it has with the modern vernacular usage. But pretty solid game. I was very impressed. I enjoyed just buying and beating a game and like being like, yeah, that was a great time. It felt nice, a great change of pace. It's not like, oh, I had to go fucking commit like 50 hours of my time to finish this here. It's like, no, it's just like a one and done, and I felt good about it. Try walk away. That's a novel feeling these days with the types of games that we play on this site.
Yep.
Oh, that was cool. That's small saga. If you're interested like in a very like tight packaged RPG that won't take a lot of time to beat, I highly recommend playing Small Saga. It's a really cool game. Um, and then the last thing we'll talk about here, very briefly, is the first DLC of Remnant 2 came out, The Awakened King. We talked about this a little bit pre-release with the news. There's the first of three DLCs. Um, and there's adding, the new archetype, the Ritualist class, uh, to it. James and I played it separately. I played it with friends launch day, and then James, you got to play it a little bit, or you beat it before it released. So let's start with you, James, on this DLC.
Well, I'm pretty much what I said in the feature was pretty like self-explanatory. what they're doing with these DLCs, it seems like, is that they're adding an additional like variant of each world, starting with Lassam.
Mhm.
And so this one's got a mix of new content and old content. Obviously, it's not going to be fully new. Some areas I recognize from my original playthrough, though obviously a little bit retooled because, again, the game is procedurally generated to an extent. But new enemies, new NPCs, new bosses, new story stuff. And it's like, if you liked Remnant 2, I mean, it's more Remnant 2. It's interesting. It's a good time.
Yeah, it's interesting how they're doing this DLC because like the core structure of Remnant 2 is like it's very fluid in like what when you enter a world and how you explore like the main and side stuff. It's all very organic and fluid and like how you go into the level. Like it's never guaranteed what you're gonna but like your layout will be definitely different from like another person's layout because it's all procedurally generated and what types of like side stories and events you see you may not you're definitely not going to witness all of them in one playthrough, so you'll have to kind of like re-roll worlds to go see them and like kind of seek them for yourself because some of them have very specific things you need to do to kind of unlock hidden rewards from them. And the way that they're doing this DLC, um it's recommended that you've played and beat the main campaign first to unlock adventure mode to easily access this DLC, because if you're
Mhm.
trying to do it in like the main playthrough, you kind of have to kind of rely on like happenstance conditions to kind of access it during a first main playthrough. So that kind of gets messy. But adventure mode lets you kind of have a stage selector, pretty much, and you can like select this DLC right away. But they call it a one shot, and meaning that the instance that you the adventure mode instance that you when you select this DLC, you'll be able to experience like all the almost all the new content right away when you select this DLC in the adventure mode, and it gives you like the new environment and like the new stages right away, the new areas, the new bosses, like right away. But but it's not like procedurally generated. It's like kind of hard seeded in. But the moment that you complete it, that one shot is now integrated in fluidly into the main campaign, meaning that like if you want to replay this DLC, you'll have to reroll for it in Losum from then on, to encounter it. Because now that you've completed it once, now it's fully integrated organically into the main modes of the game, whether it's the main campaign and the adventure mode of the Losum world. So so it's kind of giving you it's kind of removing the tedium of like having you re-roll that world to experience it once. It's like giving you like a taste of it and like fully experiencing it. But obviously, due to the nature of Remnant 2, if you want to get everything you want out of it, like all the items and stuff, you'll have to replay it again and again. Like for example, like in other bosses in Remnant 2, there'll be like a main way and an alternate way to like beat the main boss. Uh, so like, and then if you beat it like one way, it'll give you this item to craft into one thing or a mod. Or if you beat it the alternate way, you'll be rewarded another thing to be crafted into a weapon or a mod for that. And also, depending on what you do in the DLC, you might not like like fight the main boss. Instead, you might um like fight a different like no, I wouldn't say fight a different boss, but like there's definitely a different outcome you can choose in this DLC that won't involve fighting the main bad guy. To keep it vague, people who wanna be surprised about it. Um, and like the new places are pretty cool. There's a pretty interesting new minor boss that you fight. That's like it takes place like in a very um tight corridor, very narrow, tight corridor, and this boss has like wields like a big ass anchor that does a lot of damage when it hits you, and can also like spin around and stuff. and like the where you maneuver in that fight is very very limited. But in order to expand like the arena of that more hallways, you have to let the boss like hit like the environment to like kind of break a wall, and now you have access to another portion of that arena to run to. So it's kind of balancing like your risk versus reward on like that fight. Um, and depending on like what happens during that fight, it can be expanded depending on like if you kind of bait the boss into hitting environmental objects to clear the rubble out of the way. Um, another mean thing that they introduced in this DLC is like new modifiers to existing bosses. For example, what I mean by modifiers, like in an action RPG like Diablo or Path of Exile, like you'll have modifiers like you'll have bosses that like have higher health, or bosses that'll like deal more damage, or like some bosses might like summon walls, like or summon minions. Um, in this DLC, they have introduced new modifiers. One of them is really really nasty, called the cubes modifier. And the cubes modifier basically, throughout the fight against them, they'll summon revolving cubes around them, and if those cubes hit you, you'll take a lot of damage. So you have to be very conscious about your positioning in the fight. And this was like in a very unfortunate um uh, where I encountered this cubes modifier was very very annoying, because it was during the executioner minor boss fight, where normally you could cheese this boss off a ledge because they're like in the water, and you're like at a heightened area and they have no way to jump up to it. But because of this cube modifier, those cubes can still reach you now. So you actually have to like kind of go down there and fight the boss with like very limited mobility, and kind of like you're pushed to like run around the arena through like these narrow corridors and hallways to kind of get a decent amount of like stream of damage to it, while you're dodging like these cubes that are like forming up every so often around it, which is it's a fun it's a nasty but fun twist on it. So I'm looking like after playing this DLC with friends, we did like about two playthroughs of it. We're all really looking forward to see like how the other uh um DLC content for this game will be like, because we had a lot of fun with this one. And like the new ritualist archetype is really cool too. They can deal like there's definitely like new mods and weapons that are very 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 obviously tuned for this class to make it really shine, and making it so that stacking a shitload of ailments, and just doing bonus damage based on its ailments and spells. Good. It's a pretty powerful archetype. Really one to develop for people who want dig into that. Overall, it's like you said, James, it is more of what makes Remnant 2 good. It is a very solid first offering for this game. So that game continues to be really really fucking cool. With that was a lot of we've been busy with games this week. So that was Persona 5 Tactica, the Super Mario RPG remake, Small Saga, and the Remnant to the Awakened King DLC. Those were the four games that we talked about uh, based on what we played this week. And now we are gonna dive into the news. Not a lot of news this week, but there's like a lot of like updates to like big games coming out early next year. The first one that we'll dive into is a new kind of like blog update from Square Enix surrounding Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. They were showing off new characters, synergy abilities, and the new dynamic difficulty that seems to have some of our community in uproar. Adam, let's talk about it. They showed off, obviously they showed off Calm and the Mithril Mine. Um, they showed off more of the side characters like this new Broden character who's the owner and operator of the Anetcom, along other side characters like Rhonda, Priscilla, Billy. But
Yeah, some
I
of these
think
characters are like minor NPCs in the original.
yeah,
Like Priscilla, I didn't even remember that was her name. Like, oh yeah, she's the
me too.
dolphin girl. So,
Right.
um,
I kind of remember her because I was watching a streamer replaying FF7, and he was stuck in a minigame where
well,
he
that
could time
minigame,
make
yeah, that
her
minigame is more memorable than she is. It's just kind of a weird, goofy minigame in the
Yeah.
original. But I'm not surprised
Yeah.
it's here now. But yeah, they have like if you check our website, we have like there's these new NPC characters and whatnot. And then in previous updates, like when they announced the release date, they kind of explained some of the skills for like Aerith and Tifa and whatnot, or Barrett and Tifa. And I was like, all right, here's some skills for Red 13 and Aerith, and it's literally just like here's some of their abilities that they can use, screenshots of them in battle, and then
One of my friends was saying, oh, they're like adapting the leyline Black Mage mechanic from FF14 for Aerith now with her word shift ability. So it seems like some of the gameplay systems or philosophies from FF14 is going to be adapted here with the leyline mechanic that Black Mages can do.
and then one of the new things they're adding in the sequel is like the combo abilities. They're called synergy abilities, and they've shown like a few of them with like Aerith and Tifa. But now it's like here's Cloud and Tifa called Relentless Rush, Barrett and Red 13, Overfang. So obviously there's just gonna be some fun like team up attacks between characters that you can do. Just kind of a fun little wrinkle in battle. Oh yeah, you got Cloud and Aerith, Barrett and Cloud, all the different combinations. Showed a few new summons. I'm actually
Yeah,
reading
yeah.
this
The Kujata.
Kujata, a bovine deity, a cow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Kujata, they shut off like most of these at the Tokyo Game Show and the release date. So
Yeah, but now they're just kind
they're spelling
of
it out.
detailing them in
Yeah.
more further.
Yeah.
Now the one thing that's interesting, and they didn't actually go into a lot of detail on it. There's like, there's active and classic mode, which is the same as remake. Honestly, I don't know if did many people really play in the classic mode. I'm not sure.
I heard some people did play classic mode, so yeah, I think it's been a good number did.
Okay, but yeah, now there's like in remake, we've all played it. I'm assuming most people have played it if they're listening to this. There was like easy mode, normal mode, and then like hard mode that was like pretty much just like a new game plus mode. Now, this one adds dynamic difficulty, and they don't really say a lot about this. All they say is enemy difficulty adjusts automatically based on your skill level. Select this if you love the thrill of the fight. So
I think that's just like enemies always being scaled to
yeah,
your level.
so this is more of an open worldish game where it seems like there's a little bit of flexibility in which direction do you go in. So maybe it's kind of balancing the world in such a way where it doesn't matter which direction you go in, it's going to be challenging in any direction, and enemies will always be a little bit higher stats than you or whatever. So, that's just an option. It is an option. It feels like it's not really like it's a different difficulty option that you can choose, either that or normal mode. So you don't have to do it. I'm
So
kind of curious how it works, like
me
more
too.
than just a single sentence.
I'm
Right.
kind of considering like choosing that for my playthrough because I think
So
that's interesting.
so that sort of reminds. I mean, there's different implementations of this sort of thing. Like
Yeah.
it kind of
FF8 is the most interesting. I mean,
Final
not
Fantasy VIII
interesting,
is an obvious
just
one. Although
yeah.
if you're not playing Final Fantasy VIII by like breaking it wide open with card mod and triple triad and other things, you're doing it wrong. Now, like Saga games, like Romancing Saga 3 we mentioned earlier, those games, like Romancing Saga 3 and other Saga games, a lot of them are pretty open-ended. You can go whichever way you want, and enemies do scale to you. That's just like part of the style, you know? So it's like maybe it's something like that where just enemies are always going to be scaled to your level. You're never going to just, walk over enemies because they're always going to be at least mildly challenging. But yeah, it's like some Saga games, like only bosses are static, but enemies scale up in different ways. There's different like nuances to it. So I'm just curious how it actually works.
Right.
So
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people on social media are like, I don't know about this dynamic
I mean, we
difficulty.
just have one sentence to go off of, so There's actually two sentences, because there's one in the screenshot and then there's one in the press release. I mean, they
Yeah.
basically say the same thing. The press release says, enemies grow stronger as your characters do. Perfect for players who crave constant challenge.
Yep.
And I know some people may not like that. Some people like getting like overpowered. But it might just be, a way to balance the fact that open world, you can kind of go whichever way you want and make it not just be like trivial eventually. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to try it. Like, consider me curious because I'm like, I think FF7 remake is at its most fun when there's like extended fights when there's like there's actually like I don't like deciding fights within like less than 10 seconds in that game. I kind of like that extended like okay, how am I gonna balance between like my limit breaks, my what magic I'm gonna use, who I'm gonna control doing it.
I think I'll be fine if I don't have to deal aerial combat. If it's aerial combat, I just want that shit to be over with like immediately.
That's fair. That's fair. Go pick a mage character. just go play Aerith, and there you go. But yeah, I think that's kind of like the one real new thing that was revealed in this new.
I mean, there's a screenshot of the
release.
Mithril Mine. There's a screenshot of Calm. It's kind of nice to see them.
Yeah. But that's very very soon, February 29th. They have not changed that. They also provided like a brief story recap trailer about having the FF7 remake. So, well, if you want to get a quick recap of FF7 remake, Square Enix made one for you. If you haven't played FF7 remake, it's filled with spoilers. Obviously,
I heard this game is a perfect place to start.
Who would have thunk? But yeah, so that's a lot. That's very exciting. We didn't get a press packet for this, but the Asian official site for Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth provided a lot of um, new details on the turn-based battle system improvements, new jobs, and the exclusive jobs for party members. So a lot of this is like things you can already kind of see if you played the Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth demo, either at TGS or in the demo in the Like a Dragon Gaiden. But they're more explicit with it, right? So like in the turn-based battle system for Infinite Wealth, obviously like we've shown already, characters can now move in battle within this like circular designated zone. You have area of effect attacks that you can kind of manipulate the angle now because you can now move around in battle. There's like environmental hazards that you can push enemies back towards. All that sort of stuff. The one thing that I really appreciated that wasn't very apparent in the demo was there's this new smackdown option for like if you get into a fight with like much weaker enemies, you can basically instantly end the fight with the smackdown option. You just get less experience, but you still get money and items. So it's just a way to save time. It's like, oh, it's just like this enemy mob, and I don't want to take 2 minutes taking out this mob because I
It's
accidentally
like
run
the
into them.
new bodyguard function in Star Ocean 2.
Yeah.
Just
Oh
kind of
yeah.
run over people.
Yeah. And then they go over how Kiryu plays in battle. Once again, it's not nothing too new.
This
They
is
go
sort of
over.
tongue in cheek. I'm looking at the characters. I'm like, wait a minute, wasn't this a character, a villain in like in Yakuza 7? They're in your party
Mhm.
now. What?
Shock.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah. So obviously the playable cast of Yakuza Like a Dragon's coming out back with some new characters in there. So they kind of reintroduced them and kind of like their default classes, and what they excel at. Nothing too surprising here. And they showed it off in the previous trailers, but some of the new jobs that'll be coming, and it seems like they're doubling down on the sex lock jobs. So there's like male exclusive jobs and female exclusive jobs. So they seem to be doubling down on that. But it, uh, that doesn't really bother me. It's just like I just want them to be interesting.
I don't really
Personally,
mind that.
yeah.
As a sense of like, I've always been a fan of sort of, like in chess, not every piece can be a queen. Like I just sort of
Mhm.
like, oh wait, different characters can be different classes, and you gotta, you can't have every character be the hero or whatever. and just I kind of like having to pick options out of a set and put them together and see what you get, rather than just
Right.
having everyone be like some overpowered singular class or whatever. So I kind of like, it's just one way to frame it. Like, okay, there's more female party members this time. So there's like, okay, there's a couple of female only, male only jobs, but you have a few options still, like which characters you want to use. No, not every character can be every class, but I kind of like having some restrictions. So you can't just use always the overpowered class on every character or whatever. I kind of like that. I like that. I don't like how modern Fire Emblem you can kind of like oftentimes change whatever character and whatever class. I kind of like having some restrictions in
Yeah,
place.
as long as they all like contribute like some like interesting tactical role in battle, like
Mhm.
I'm totally fine with that, and it kind of adds like a fun flavor to it all, because like it's the jobs are like ridiculous on purpose either
Mhm.
way. So as long as it makes for a fun you know dynamic, I'm totally cool with it. So like it's not a big update. Once again, it's just kind of more new assets, more kind of detailing for people who are kind of interested from like kind of like not having been paying attention to like all the news releases for Infinite Wealth. It's like, oh, okay, I just kind of like want a quick text rundown of like what's new in this game. And that's what it's good about. So like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, um, probably going to be one of the first big RPGs coming out next year, with the January 26th release date, and then a week after that, everything comes out. So it's just we're almost there. Very very excited, very excited. Another big update from Sega here, on Unicorn Overlord. There's a lot of new info for the game. They introduced several new characters, and they really went into detail about like basically the gameplay loop of this game, what you're doing in Vanillaware's new game. So you get they show off, a spy that can join you, a witch, several knights. But the thing that's really interesting here is this exploring the overworld and this liberating towns and rebuilding them. Adam, you worked with me on getting this news post. What were some of the things that caught your eye in this Unicorn Overlord?
Okay, so first of all, I've seen some people look at this news post and like it's just like Fire Emblem or it's just like Suikoden, and I played both of those, and I'm like, not really. Now I know a lot of people have compared this to Ogre Battle, and while I played Tactics Ogre, I've never played Ogre Battle specifically. But even still, some of this town building quest kind of stuff seems pretty unique. So I'm getting, the more and more I see of this game, the more and more I'm like kind of stepping away from trying to make comparisons, because it seems like it's kind of doing a unique thing
This
here.
has its own identity.
Yeah. So there's an overworld, and on the overworld, it almost reminds me of, very briefly, I don't know what it reminds me of. It's like you can collect items on the overworld. You can sort of run into like different quests that just sort of pop up, which lead to like different battles and different scenarios. Almost, I don't know, Saga-ish. I doubt this game is very much like Saga otherwise, other than some bare, you know, fringe comparison. Like I said, it's harder and harder to compare this game to others. But there's things that take place on this overworld. You find villages and towns that you can like make deliveries to. There are quests for. There are little fortresses that you can place units in. To you can they he says you can put them in reconstructed towns and they will collect items and receive rewards. So there's some sort of like almost like base building kind of unit staging kind of gameplay here.
Yeah,
Garrison,
it's like a management mechanic
right?
almost. Like, yeah, so it's
And
a
then
pretty
like
interesting.
you can level up units like in
Mhm.
terms of like a squad of characters in the bases. There's an honor and a renown system. It says you need to prove your valor by earning honors, and to unlock the function of the fort, you need an appropriate renown rank. So, like, I assume you get that from doing quests and fighting battles. Oh yeah, it even says honor can be earned by clearing stages, delivering goods, while renown is earned by through quests and town rebuilding. So it's sort of
I think
like,
it's really cool. Like they also have like these mock battles, and usually like when RPGs like do like mock battles, it's more like sort of like practice your strategies here of like but you don't really get like anything out of it. It's like, here's your training mode area. Well, on this one, it's like, no, here's like, these are these mock battles. You'll have these are prearranged fights where allied units fight each other, and there's actually like a real merit and benefit from doing these mock battles in these forts because you're using them to kind of unlock more like unit slots, for example, which is really interesting. It's like, oh, okay, there's actually like it instills you like a meaningful sort of like you're training up your troops to expand your forces essentially.
What's sort of
And yeah,
interesting to me, I have never played 13 Sentinels,
mhm.
but this game almost seems like so 13 Sentinels. I know it has like the tower defense mode, but that the way I gather from your review and what we talked about it is that that's very much a story-driven, narrative-driven, scene-driven game with like tower defense is sort of something that kind of not just ignore, but it's just sort of
Less
like
emphasized. It's
supporting,
not really,
right?
yeah.
Where this game is like seems very dense in mechanics and systems and numbers and strategy, and like fortresses and units, and so it's
Yeah,
like
almost the inverse for like
yeah,
the
exactly.
gameplay
It's like
system here
lopsided in
is
the other
where
direction. I don't
right.
know what the narrative's going to be like in this game. It's sort of I wonder if it's sort of like a non-linear narrative depending on what quests, which people you happen to run into, and things like that. So I'm very curious about this game, especially from people who like really like 13 Sentinels because this doesn't seem like 13 Sentinels at all.
Oh yeah, no,
And I mean, I
no.
know Vanillaware has a history before then, obviously, but it's very different, which is cool. I think it's cool that they're doing something pretty different.
Yeah, yeah. It's really like I'm trying to think like the last time that like Vanillaware really did anything like on this sort of like open world scope almost,
Because
right?
what
And
they had
like
the Odin Sphere remaster, they had Dragon's Crown. Those were
yeah,
both like side scroller RPGs.
right.
So this is not that.
And it's definitely not Grim Grimoire because
Yeah.
that's more like a side-scrolling, like almost tower defense management strategy. Um, but yeah, this is more like a classical RPG that's very much about like building up armies and kind of going around the world and sort of liberating gods. And like you said, almost has like a sort of like management layer
hmm
to it, like an army management almost. So like it's not really it's not an action RPG. It's
Nope.
very much management. And it's kind of funny, like the screenshots as main quest, side quest, liberation quest, overworld quest. You just have these categories for quests. I think it's just I think I don't know if it's gonna like live up to the expectation of like what this game like what people think this game is. Because
Yeah,
I think
I think inevitably some people this isn't going to be what they expected because it's
yeah,
so it seems very unique and different. I think some people might just assume it's a certain way when it may not be.
right.
So
Yeah. And then also there's another game where it has a character named Clive in it. Hmm.
I
Curious.
was thinking, it's like, has anyone played Grand Knight's History?
Yes.
Vanilla Rare game. I
Yeah.
was wondering if it kind of copied that DNA. I don't know. That game is kind of like unknown. I don't feel like anyone has played enough
I
of it.
I, I played it, but this is definitely on a bigger scope than that. It's not really like Grand Knight's History. And like Grand Knight's History still feels smaller scope than what this is. Even
Yeah,
Grand Kingdom, like not it's not really like our Grand Kingdom.
from some of the ex developers from it, wasn't it? I
Yeah,
can't
yeah. Grand Kingdom, I don't think was vanilla variant themselves, but developed. Um, but yeah, this game continues to shape up, and I think a lot of the pieces and a lot of the dots will be connected once they actually like release like a gameplay trailer for this game that has like extended footage of like what you actually do in this game.
this is just a tiny bit of inside baseball. I assigned Cullen to review this game. I don't know if
Mhm.
this really feels like a Cullen game. Does this
I
feel
hope
like
he
a
doesn't
Cullen
get
game?
stuck as he's complaining about front mission too.
I mean, I don't know. I'm being sort of nice teasing here. It doesn't. This isn't the sort of game that Cullen would typically uh, attract to. I think, but I don't know.
I don't know. I have a pretty hard time beating Ogre Battle. I'm not sure if anyone like
I
struggles
Uh,
own
with
Ogre
Ogre
Battle.
Battle.
I haven't just gotten around to it yet.
Oh, I fucking struggle with that game. Or maybe I just want like that perfect ending.
So the Ogre
yeah,
Battle comparison, it comes in sort of the vein from what I understand. Like you have these sort of units that attack together. That you have like I think 6 different slots that you can have up to 6 different people kind of
Yeah, it's pretty much party formations. Like
right,
like instead of like a character versus character, there's more squad versus squad, and how
right.
you build those squads will exemplify what they're capable of in battle. So, for example, like if you form a squad that has like a lot of like shield people at the front, they're more suited to be at the front lines because they're able to push up towards the enemy, but they'll struggle against like say something like spellcasters, for example. So that's kind of where the ogre battle comparisons are because on that game you pretty much do travel kind of like on this open map, and you do engage in these like kind of like these battles that like you don't necessarily directly control them when you're not being like a attack command, but you're just kind of going up to them and seeing how your formation fares against other enemy formations. So that's kind of where the ogre battle comparisons lie in this game. And I think that's pretty apt. I think that's the closest you're gonna get.
Right.
Outside of that, I don't think it's not a grid based strategy RPG like Fire Emblem. I don't know where you get the Suiken. Like I definitely know an outlet compared to Suiken. It's like I don't know where you get that from, honestly.
I think
Yeah.
it's the mass amount of, like, party members on the screen.
Yeah, I
Like
get.
Suikoden 3, you get like 6 party members in the screen at like using it all at once. It just kind of feels a little bit chaotic. Probably gives that vibes, probably.
Maybe. But even then, like I guess also Suiken has had like that overworld map battle gimmick thing too.
Don't you remember the strap battles fighting Lucas Bright?
But yeah, that's Unicorn Overlord
There's a
still coming
mining
out March
minigame.
8th. Right. But there's no fishing minigame that they
Nope, there's just a
noted yet.
mining
Oh,
So
minigame.
now it's
so
not a 10 out of 10. No fishing.
yeah.
It's not an
So
RPG.
I'm thinking Cullen might score it low because they're still fishing. That's the vibe that I'm getting. For smaller news here, we got a new trailer for Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince, showing off stars of the show, the monsters themselves. I did note that like some of the monsters they showed here are like uh, appear for the first time in the Dragon Quest series, like the Choco Slime, which is there's just like chocolate slime stuck in like a pastry pocket in it. I'm like, man, that looks good.
Yeah, they've had a
I don't
couple of
know.
these. They've had a couple of these like cakey
Yeah,
slimes. So, and
yeah.
one of the worlds in this game is like a candy land. So,
Oh, that's it. Yeah, I haven't really been following attention. Yeah, like I saw like a demon model, but like during the chef outfit. I'm like, okay. So, I mean, that's just another minor update that's coming out very soon, December 1st for the Switch. So, um, yeah, man, but this is once again, I'm waiting for the PC release of this. So, there's the Monster Showcase. We got a new dev diary for Sandland.
wait.
Um,
I'm looking at
oh,
this chocolate slime.
yeah,
Apparently, the name is Gunach Goody. Gunach Goody.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
I've just all these different uh puns in the English names. So
Yeah, then you also had the vegan Dragora.
yeah.
They had one that's like they have a trumpet on it. They're called Croc Buggle-Doo.
Okay.
Juggle-Doo? Yeah, fun stuff like that. Yeah, this new dev diary for Sandland covers dungeons and subquests. Kind of it is kind of that conversational format between the host Samantha and the producer of the Sandland Keishu Minami. Talking about how you in order to traverse dungeons, you may need to use your vehicle to clear up debris to progress further in dungeons. Because in dungeons, you kind of salvage equipment to get materials to further upgrade your vehicles. They do mention in this kind of I don't know if they've ever mentioned this for this before, but there's be some sort of like base like or town building metagame in Sandland where um as you're completing subquests in it, you're kind of recruiting residents into this like kind of this town area
Yeah, I
that
wasn't
you're
aware of this.
developing. Yeah. So and then as you get new residents, they'll establish like new facilities and shops and functions of that town. So like one of the things they showed off is like that repainting your um vehicles, you know, them to look different, look a certain way. And they said they'll go more into this kind of base development mechanic in the next dev diary. So they're kind of teasing up already that. But it's kind of very basic stuff that they show off. So a tiny bit of like new gameplay
Now,
snippets
sort of
here and
separate
there.
from this, we
Yeah,
knew that there's gonna be like a Sandland like movie, but now that I think I heard there's gonna be like a Sandland like actual like animated
TV
series.
series.
Like
Yeah,
Well, no,
like
the
they're
Sandland movie I think it was like screened at San Diego Comic Con in July.
Yeah, I mean,
oh,
it's either out or coming out or it's available somewhere. But I think they recently announced there's actually going to be like an anime series. I don't know if it's like a
yeah,
full
yeah,
full
yeah.
series or like a mini series or whatever. But there's more Sandland.
There's more. Yeah,
So
yeah. So I don't know if they're like gonna like because sometimes they do this thing, where they release like a TV series or anime series, and then but it's like kind of split up like the film. Like for example,
oh
like
yeah,
the like Gundam Unicorn OVAs, they had
right,
like a Unicorn TV series that split up the films
right.
in that format. So it might be that too. And then they might like add like a few scenes here and there to it. So I'm not exactly sure what, uh, but that's what I'm guessing that it's gonna be. So yeah, but still no release date for this game. We just know it's probably coming next year, unless they shadow drop it this year, which they won't.
At the
But
TGAs.
imagine it's like it's available now. It's like what? So that's Sandland. We have a new more dev diaries for this is for an upcoming indie game called. Actually, I don't know if this is indie because it has a publisher as well. I don't know what indie means anymore. It's called Dustgrave. It's a upcoming sandbox RPG. The developer is Inner Void Interactive and published by Digital Tribe Games. The first dev diary they released was this relationship and record system, and basically, uh, as you do stuff in this game, whether you're interacting with an NPC, whether you kill someone, any significant action, whether it's considered quote unquote good or bad in this game, will be recorded into the game itself, and that'll grant you positive or negative modifiers for certain NPCs. So, for example, a random example they gave in the dev diary was like, for example, this NPC might hate their neighbor, so you'll get a positive modifier that you kill their neighbor because they didn't like their neighbor. It's like, all
I mean,
right, well,
in
shit.
most RPGs, if you kill a civilian, that's bad. But in this case, it's not.
Yeah,
But yeah,
for this
I
NPC.
remember posting the original trailer for this. It definitely has like that indie scale to it. But yeah, they're really emphasizing this sort of consequence system where everything is recorded. So that's the kind of gimmick here. It's an isometric
Yeah,
game, kind of, CRPG-ish. So
and
if you're into those sorts of games,
yeah, and depending on what modifiers you might have for some people, like they're saying it might unlock special events or allows you to join a certain faction in certain circumstances. They also, detailed the combat system. It's a turn-based combat system where you have action points, um, light and heavy variants of like weapon attacks and magical spells consume more attack points. They also have like generic actions like guarding and dashing in combat. So it's pretty early days, like in terms of like what they're sharing for this game and marketing and stuff. But it's gonna be available on PC via Steam sometime next year. So yeah, covering that and seeing where this Dustgrave development goes. Interesting stuff. Next, they showed off more gameplay for the previously announced Seven Deadly Sins Origin action RPG. The G Star 2023 event recently happened over in
that
Korea.
actually event's going on right now,
Right now,
this
oh, it's okay.
weekend.
It's
Yep.
like a multi-day event, so I
Yep.
forgot if it was like. So yeah,
It's basically like the Korean TGS, basically.
yeah, yeah.
So
So we get a lot of updates on like upcoming games, and usually a lot of these games are coming to like either PC, console, or mobile. Usually PC and mobile these days, and because of the crazy success of Genshin Impact, several years ago, a lot of like games that you see in G-Star now kind of resemble Genshin.
Yeah, there was an NCSoft game that's like an RPG that's with a cell shaded open world. It's like, this looks. I don't want to say everything looks like Genshin, but this looks like Genshin.
Yeah. Like
well, at least the combat system looked like Xenoblade-ish, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But this is for the seven deadly sins. It's like an adaptation off the anime. So
yeah, it's like the phrasing they use for this because like the description, and admittedly I have to like Google translate this, but it is explicitly the phrasing on this, and they call it a quote unquote new multiverse story.
so okay.
I guess so. The protagonist of this is the son of Meliodas and Elizabeth, which are the main hero and heroine from the original Seven Deadly Sins story, and then I believe Tristan is from the Four Knights of the Apocalypse like sequel.
I don't know anything about this.
But anyway, there's some sort of like, I don't know. It's a new multiverse story. So
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. Yeah, but this is kind of very much resembles Genshin, where you switch off between 4 different characters in battle. In the middle of battle, they seem to have like specialized in a certain element, and I'm sure if you mix certain elements with certain characters and you switch them off, it might do something to character. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I don't know. Might
I mean,
be
kind of
cool.
like most anime adaptation games, the key main audience is going to be fans of that property.
But I don't even know. Like, is Seven Deadly Sins that big over in the West? I don't know.
I think it's a Netflix anime, so that
Uh-huh.
I feel like anything. I'm not even big in the anime sphere, but I feel like anything that's on Netflix isn't as popular if it's on Crunchyroll. That's my take. I might even be wrong on that. I think it is, but I might be wrong.
Seven Deadly Sins Origin. NCSoft, they showed a new cinematic trailer for Throne and Liberty at G-Star 2023. There's their upcoming MMORPG that's actually, has had like some closed beta tests, previously.
Yeah, Throne and
So-
Liberty is interesting, because relatively early on in its and Korean MMOs, they always feel like they get announced, and then in like a decade later we get another update on them. It feels like they always take a long time to like manifest. But Throne and Liberty is the next game from NCSoft, and they're the publisher behind like Lineage, right? And
Yeah.
Guild Wars Ion, Chow's favorite game. But their Throne and Liberty is their newest MMORPG, and this one is actually like relevant because Amazon already announced we are publishing it in North America and Japan and the West.
I
So
previewed it at
oh, I thought for
Summer
some
Game
reason I
Fest.
thought you decided not to. I don't even remember that you did. I knew you had the option. I forgot that you actually previewed it.
Did I actually get a preview out? I think.
Oh, let me check.
Well, I know that I wrote about specifically. No, I think I did Throne Liberty. I think it was another thing that I decided not to cover.
I think if I remember correctly, you had the choice between that and Blue Protocol, and you chose Blue Protocol. But I might be.
Oh no, I mean I did both, but
Oh,
yeah, let's
okay.
see.
Okay, Adam, I have a question. Part of this description for Throne and Liberty calls it their highly anticipated flagship MMPROG.
Yes, I think that's just a severe typo. I don't know what that
Okay.
means.
Okay, there's I did put a preview up on
Okay.
June 14th. So yeah.
Okay.
For however much is worth doing a preview for
Of
an
an
MMO
MMORPG,
is,
yeah.
which I'll be perfectly honest, 0.
Like it's definitely a game that will come out and it exists in front of me in a playable state.
I think Amazon. First of all, Amazon just announced that they're like laying off people in their games divisions. I think it's more like Twitch and Prime Gaming type stuff, but like this doesn't feel like feasible or sustainable to me. They have Lost Ark, which is they're publishing from, I forget who the developer of that is, but it's another Korean studio, right?
Smilegate.
Smilegate, yeah. And then they have New World, which is their own internal game. They're publishing Blue Protocol next year, and that's Bandai Namco online. They have Throne and Liberty coming out. That game's coming out in Korea like next month. So that game is done. It just obviously they have to do the
Yeah.
translation and release here, but the game like development is pretty much done. Like they're ready to launch it in Korea. And then they have an MMORPG for Lord of the Rings coming out too that they're doing. So it's like, can Amazon run 5-6 MMOs?
I don't think they've thought that far ahead, considering when
Some of
people
the-
ask them about the Lord of the Rings MMO, saying, "Isn't there already a Lord of the Rings MMO that people are probably going to keep playing?" And said, "Oh, they'll just move over to ours." And it's like, you have obviously never played an MMO in your goddamn life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got money to burn, okay?
Oh, and also, I was looking at making sure I didn't forget anything. Amazon is also publishing Tomb Raider. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
that's not an MMO, but they're publishing the next Tomb Raider from Crystal Dynamics, which is sort of weird, but they're doing it.
Weird. That reminds me, didn't they just announce like a YouTube Raider like animated Netflix show too?
I think so.
Okay. Anyway, we mentioned the Thaumaturge earlier. Like, but people might be like, "What? Is that coming out next month, or not even coming out next? Isn't it coming out like in a few? Yeah, coming out next month." And it's like, no. They recently announced that the Thaumaturge is delaying its PC release to February 20th, 2024. Another
Very good date.
Western RPG being delayed to a much, a less busy period in video games. February 2024.
So this game is being developed by what's their
Full
name?
Theory.
Yeah, and they're actually also the team supposedly behind the Witcher remake.
Okay.
Eventually, so that's sort of like an interesting framing. Like when Witcher remake comes out, which it may not be anytime soon. I have no idea, but like this is the team behind it. So another Polish studio. But yeah, Thaumaturge. If you don't know what that is, not too surprising. It's not a huge splashy game, but it's it's a Western RPG kind of isometric. You're summoning. There was a Steam Access demo that Josh played and talked about. You're summoning like demon-like spirit sort of things as like a Thaumaturge, and those are the things you're sort of controlling in battle, alongside the Thaumaturge himself.
Yeah.
Kind of got like this sort of early 19th or 18th, 19th, 20th century. I think it's like World War I era Warsaw.
Yeah.
Supernatural. So
Correct.
I'm interested in it.
Yeah, me too.
It's just releasing, in between Persona and Final
I
Fantasy.
thought I was playing. I thought I was gonna play this next month, not February 2024.
Yeah, it's a little bit different when it's like, oh, it's releasing in December, which is relatively quiet, and then I was like, oh no, middle of February. That's a very sandwiched month. So.
But yeah, I mean, but it's to give developers more time to polish it, and that's always a good thing.
Right.
You don't want them to crunch through it. You want them to make sure they're healthy as they're trying to finish it. So any time that the game is being delayed because they want to make sure to minimize, if not no crunch, that'd be ideal. Go for it. I'd rather a game be delayed than rushed out the door and we get the slew of PC release ports that we got earlier this year.
Did you see that apparently new Gabe Newell quote?
Yes, suck is forever.
Yeah, it's like
I love that.
Delay is just a little while. Suck is forever. Like suck is forever. Okay.
That should be our podcast.
It's just like
title.
the Miyamoto quote, which apparently he never even said.
You never even said. Yeah.
It's like the Miyamoto quote, only just just suck is forever. So.
Oh, I love that. I agree, actually, Gabe.
Misquoted forever.
That is a really funny misquote though from Miyamoto.
Like everyone attributes that a good game or a bad game is bad forever, or a delayed game is eventually good. Everyone contributes that to Miyamoto, but apparently he never actually said that.
Not like Mary Antoinette, when she said, "Let them eat cake."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the insanity quote from Albert Einstein. He never said that.
Oh.
So
this one is this next
is a
one
real
is really
quote.
cool.
Gabe
Oh.
Newell, suck is forever.
Yeah, truly a visionary, actually. So this the next story is really cool. Larian announced a physical deluxe edition for Baldur's Gate 3, and it looks beautiful, and it is a steal for $79.99. You get this Mind Flayer poster, obviously the game itself for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X only, because Xbox Series S does not have a disk
I
drive.
actually forgot that. I'm like, wait, is it not coming to S? Oh no, that's just a digital only console. I forgot.
Okay, I forgot to until James reminded us. Guys, S doesn't have a disk drive. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. So yeah, obviously the game itself, Mind Flayer poster, 32 stickers, a deluxe edition box, the OST, which is 3 discs, two like patches, as in like physical patches, and of course a world map of the game, and that's just for $79.99
And
coming out.
worth noting that this is not a collector's edition or a limited edition. This is just
That already happened.
yeah,
for
that
PC.
collector's edition already happened. This is just a physical edition. You have to buy it through Larian Store, so it's not being sold at retailers. But they ship to a lot of places worldwide, and they will restock if they need to. Like it's not limited. So
And then to clarify, this not only just for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, it is also coming. There's also a PC, physical PC DVD for the game that hosts a custom installer and arrives with a Steam key.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll be honest. The stuff with the PC Collector's Edition, I'm just gonna say it. You have boutique like VN publishers that do physical releases on PC, and they just give people like a flash drive with the game on it. And Flash is so cheap. I understand why they don't package Blu-rays in for physical copies of PC games, because nobody has a fucking disc drive anymore, and nobody buys like external like Blu-ray drives. But it's like, if you're gonna do a physical copy on PlayStation and Xbox that has multiple discs for the explicit purpose that you don't have to worry about being online to play it, while you're also selling this game on GOG, so you don't care about DRM, and it's like DRM free on Steam. Why didn't they just have like a USB drive with the game on it?
That's true.
It is like really like I know I'm being petty here, but it's just like it kind of, it's like, really?
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Yeah, because yeah, if you wanna, you have to go find the disk drive somewhere for it now.
Do any of your
And you still
PCs
need to
that
be
you're
online
on?
because it's a custom installer, but it's on a
Yeah.
DVD, so it's like you're going to have to be connected to the internet. It's like that's not a problem now, but it's like 20 years from now, you'll probably still be able to put that PS5, well, those PS5 discs in a PS5, or those Xbox discs in an Xbox, and they'll work. It's just, I don't know.
Do any of the computers your guys are on right now have a disk drive?
Nope.
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 I think my previous PC did.
I actually think I might
I'll-
have like a USB disk drive somewhere.
I have a USB disk drive. I'll be honest though, I would still have a disk drive if modern PC cases had space for them.
Yeah, they don't fucking care about that shit anymore. Like, fuck you. Yeah, like my current case right now does not have a place where you would put a disk drive at the front. There's no slot for it at all.
And that's been the case,
For
at least like half a decade, probably closer to a full decade at this point. So,
But yeah, also on this note, they revealed or announced or pre-announced, Larian did, that the Xbox version, like the digital version, they're going to announce the release date at the Game Awards, and a lot of people are just
It's gonna be a
assuming
Shadow
Shadow Drop.
yeah,
It's sort of
it's
like,
gonna be a
why
Shadow Drop.
not?
It-
And if it's not a
They
Shadow Drop,
probably-
it might be like the very next day or something, you know? But-
Yeah,
Or February 2024.
well, but they confirmed it's coming next month.
Oh, okay.
But
So
that ruins the joke, though.
Yeah. It'll be. I'm curious because I know that there was those leaked documents about like Microsoft like internally like I guess like estimating what the cost of like Game Pass deals would be, and like Baldur's Gate 3 at the time was one of those like
Really cheap ones.
I wonder if after the game blew up, if Microsoft decided to try and get a late Game Pass deal for that.
I have to imagine. I mean, of course, I assume they definitely want it on Game Pass, and they'll pony up for it.
This is
I-
totally anecdotal, but I know someone who I work with who is like, this is the thing they are most anticipating out of anything in the world. The Xbox version of Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Because
Yeah,
they really want to play
that's
Baldur's
actually
Gate
cool.
3 and they play on Xbox. So
That's
they
cool.
want to play
That's
this.
cool.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that it's like Microsoft is kind of like you even see it on like the Xbox communities out there. They've really conditioned their player base to not really buy games, especially not at launch. So
Yeah, it's crazy. The ongoing Game Pass effect. Ripple.
So it'll be interesting to see exactly how this does on Xbox. Exactly how many people actually buy it if it's not like a day one Game Pass deal.
Yeah, just seeing, what can we say? The continued success and popularity of Baldur's Gate 3 endures.
I checked the number of Steam reviews the other day, and at least going by conventional wisdom of like 50 sales per Steam review, that's generally what people go with. Like on Steam alone, not counting GOG, not counting the PlayStation 5 version, it has 357,000 reviews, which means approximately, again, going off conventional wisdom, we don't know for sure, it's probably sold around 15 million copies on Steam.
That'd be
That's
crazy if true.
insane.
That'd be crazy if true. That's crazy. Yeah. Oh. Damn.
I'd say it's definitely past 10 million across PC and PS5 by this point.
I can believe that. I think I can.
Yeah.
Oh,
Crazy. It
Yeah.
feels like before this came out, like I was excited for this. There was people like obviously on staff excited for this, but I don't think anyone expected this to
No.
essentially be the biggest release of the year.
definitely not. I mean, you'll get like the lineage of like CRPG.
And everyone who played it
Environments.
thought even the original Sin 2 was good or great, even excellent. Even our own review of it. But
Yeah.
this game exploded. So
And even then, like even people who played like the closed beta or like the early beta of like Baldur's Gate 3, like they're like they had their issues with it, and it's like I don't know, like it's all right, it's pretty neat, but I don't think anyone obviously really knew what they were in for the final product until it hit. Oh shit. Moving on, we have the PlayStation Plus game catalog for November 2023. Some notable RPGs on there, including Grandia, Aiden Chronicle Rising, and Dragon's Dogma. So if you're,
I'm actually planning on playing Dragon's Dogma soon because
Mhm.
I've always been interested. But
Mhm.
also, this is the next news post. I'm kind of jumping ahead here. Capcom announced a showcase for Dragon's Dogma 2 coming up in like a week and a half, November 28th, which they're going to
Yep.
reveal a lot about the game and probably the release date because
Oh.
the PEGI rating, like the European
And the
rating
Saudi
for the
Arabian
game,
rating also leaked, so it's like
Oh.
multiple rating boards. So it's definitely the March release.
so it's like March 22nd or something like that, like basically late March.
And I think the Saudi Arabian ratings board also said the same thing. So yeah, it's probably releasing March 22nd.
Which that also makes sense in the context of Capcom. They said in their financials many times, we have a big title coming out in Q4 that's going to basically get, more or less inflate or boost our revenue. And some people, 9 months ago or 6 to 9 months ago, were thinking, oh, this is going to be Monster Hunter. But no, it might have been just Dragon's Dogma. That's coming out in this quarter. And I want to play it, but I have to play the first one first. So,
Adam,
we'll do
do you
that.
have a Steam Deck? I would recommend playing on.
I would never play on Steam Deck. I am not a Steam Decker. I'm sorry.
I played a lot, and I mean a lot of Dragon's Dogma on my flight to Japan for TGS. That was a good time. But yeah, the main reason I thought that for a while that it wasn't going to be a Monster Hunter release; it was a March release. I said I always thought that no, they're going to announce it in March because March 11th is going to be the 20th year anniversary of the series, so they'll probably have an anniversary live stream where they announce, oh yeah, this is coming out this holiday. So,
hey, you know what? Late March 2024 is not February 2024, so it seems to be in a good spot. If that's the release.
February is really dense, like really dense.
Late January through February is basically insane.
Yeah, like, early January is okay. End of March is okay, but yeah, like late January to early March is.
You hear that, folks? You have a month and a half to get through your RPG backlog, assuming you're not getting Dragon Quest Monsters 3, in which case, good luck.
Yeah, so I need to finish the original Dragon's Dogma before like early or late January, because else I won't have time.
Yeah. Well, good luck to us all. Godspeed.
But yeah, in terms of the RPG catalog that I sort of just glossed over, Grandia, the Aiden Chronicle Rising like mini spin-off prequel game, side game, whatever you want to call it, and Dragon's Dogma, sort of makes sense because Aiden Chronicle has like the main game coming out in a couple of months. So, it's like, hey,
that's April, isn't it?
Yeah, April. Which again, April is not packed yet either. I'm sure it'll get there, but not yet. But Aiden Chronicle 100 Heroes is April. This is the spin-off game, which I think is fine, kind of in the context that it's sort of a side prequel taster game. It's basically, it's literally just like a teaser for the main event.
Hey, those characters are going to show up in 100.
Yeah, several of the characters will show up, and I think some of the characters are pretty fun. So like, they're you'll see them again. Why is CJ wearing a suit now? That's so weird. That's not what I expected. Anyways, I guess in a weird way, she might be like, that might be something she would try to fit in. I don't know. But Grandia is sort of interesting because this is like the HD collection for Grandia, never released for PlayStation, and I know people have been asking for it because it's on Switch. It's on Steam, but not on PlayStation. It's like, well, here's Grandia on PlayStation. It's just the emulated PlayStation 1 version.
I've seen a lot of people that are saying that they're excited for this because they were so burned by the shitty filtering on the official remasters that they're expecting this to be a better experience.
Only problem is you don't have Japanese voices.
Yeah.
So it's a trade-off.
And you also, I forgot does it have like the rewind function as well? Because
it'll have like the usual emulation functions. Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this week's round of news, along with the titles that we played. This upcoming week is going to be weird because I expect there's probably going to be no news because it's Thanksgiving week, and there's usually nothing that really happens or gets announced.
For what it's worth, Thanksgiving for me is just a long weekend. So are we planning on podcasting next week? Should we decide this right now? I'll be here.
I'll be here. Okay,
yeah, I'll be here too.
All right, so it sounds like we are.
Guys.
So, we'll just see.
I don't know what we're gonna talk about, but
I don't know what we're gonna talk about. We'll just eat. I guess I'll just eat turkey and just like for the entire time. We're just like, yeah, is that turkey good? Yeah, and then just for 2 hours, that's it. No games, no news, just eating. That's it. Just having a good time. So, unless something happens, we're still planning to record a new podcast episode next weekend, day after Thanksgiving. So unless we announce something that says, oh, we can't do it, we should still be able to. Until then, thank you very much for joining us, listening to the entire episode. You can find us on rpgsite.net. You can find us on Twitter at rpgsite. You can find us on facebook.com via facebook.com/rpgsnet. Our YouTube is youtube.com/rpgsitenet, where we upload our podcast episodes. You can find us on your favorite podcast app, whether that be iTunes or Spotify or wherever else you get podcasts. You can find us on Discord via discord.com/invite/RPG site, where we have a still pretty damn active community of people who not only just play RPGs, but fighting game people there. Probably play that Under Night in Birth 2 beta.
Is that what those Uni 2 people are talking about?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, challenge me anytime.
And I've been kind of playing other games. I know you've been tinkering around with your not Switch as well.
It's too good.
Until then, you can catch us next time. I have no idea what the fuck we're gonna talk about, but
Dead of the brain.
maybe this is the channel episode where he's like, finally, I can talk about all these 15-plus-year-old games, and no one can stop me. Who knows? Like, that might just be what ends up happening. Until next time, everyone, stay safe. Obviously, if you're celebrating Thanksgiving, have an awesome Thanksgiving and happy holidays to any other tradition that you may be uh, celebrating around that time period. And you can catch us next time. Till then, take care. Peace out.